cheeky monkeys. This is a Bergkamp Wonderland World Cup special part, I don't know, 3, 4, 5, 6, I don't know. All as far as I'm concerned, it's a Gooner love chain. Choo choo, mother truckers. And with us this afternoon, we have John.
Hello.
We have cheeky Kris.
Hello.
And making his podcast debut with us is Thomas from America.
Hey guys, how are you?
Oh, God, I would tell you about my cake mixture, but
Please don't.
Right, so we're just working it out. There has been 6 group games that we've missed since the last podcast, and 2 round of 16 games. So to start off with the final few group games, there was Honduras 0, Switzerland 3, and some little 5'6" wing whiz. Is he a winger? I think he's an outside. He's a bit of a Podolski, like Podolski's a winger, isn't he?
He's like a number 10.
Yeah. Is he? Oh, I thought he was a winger. Whatever it is, he gets fuck all gameplay at Bayern Munich, does he?
Mm.
And I've heard that Liverpool are after him now, which is not surprising because they're after everybody who's ever played for Southampton. And Shaqiri scored a hat-trick, which was a very impressive hat-trick. And I thought Switzerland were quite good. Anyone?
They were really good. We were recording as their goals went in, weren't we, last time?
I think we might well have been.
I remember reporting on 2 as they went in.
Kicked off at 9 o'clock and we just talked forever as usual.
Yeah, they were really good. I think, pretty much all of us picked the France game to watch, didn't we? I think.
Yeah.
And I vaguely remember saying I thought that would be a draw, and it turned out to be so, but it wasn't exactly an exciting draw. But Switzerland dispatched Honduras pretty comfortably, and like you say, Shaqiri was quality. It does make me laugh that he's been linked with Liverpool. Sorry, Southampton. Sorry, Liverpool. Whatever they are. Because they seem to be linked with everyone. They seem to be buying everybody. So I'm not sure how that's going to work out.
Well, I got a little bit of grief off of someone because I said, oh, God, Switzerland, they're rubbish. They've got 3 decent players, and the 3 decent players are Berami, Shaqiri, and Drimic. And without,
no,
who else?
You got to add Ricardo Rodriguez, the left back.
Really?
He's quality.
Inler.
Yeah, got Ken Inler as well.
Oh, well, there you go then. Maybe they've got 5 decent players.
Jackson's not too bad. Really young still, though.
That Rodriguez has got some eyebrows on him. That's all I can say. I just looked at a picture of him. He looks like he spends a lot of hours coiffuring his eyebrows. Anything else, apart from the Honduras manager, is called Luis Suarez.
Luis Suarez, yeah.
And going by all reports, he didn't bite one of the Switzerland team, which is nice.
It's always a pleasure.
I think Honduras just came for the beach time in Brazil and to kick people and then went home.
Oh, they were absolute. I mean, they lost 3-0 to France, 2-1 to Ecuador, and 3-0 to Honduras. I mean, they've won 1 game in the whole of their build-up to. Do you know they beat in their 1 game?
England.
They beat Venezuela 2-1.
Oh yeah, they did.
It was a friendly. Come on.
Is it just me that whenever I hear Ecuador, I always want to do the Sash song? Is that just me? Or?
That means nothing to me.
Okay, Google it, people.
So I'm glad to see that my favourite Venezuelan player, which is Otero, he scored the goal.
Bless him.
He's wonderful. In fact, yeah, he's been my favourite player for nearly 6 minutes now. I just pick whichever one scored, and he's immediately my favourite player. Well, I think the fact that we've got not much to say about that game apart from well done Switzerland, but you're going to get ruined in the next round. The next game was Ecuador-France. Hold on, I'm drifting off thinking about that game. Wow, what a ball fest.
I think, you get to the point where Ecuador needed to do something. France knew that they had the group pretty much on lockdown and just were on cruise control. And then Valencia, wow. What can we say about Valencia? Just signed a new 3-year extension in Manchester United. They're having a wonderful week.
It's a hideous tackle, wasn't it? It really was.
What did
I love how he didn't even complain. You got shown the red card, was like, yeah, that was probably pretty dumb, and walked away.
He catches him at sort of just below the knee, kind of shin high, above the ball. If the guy's, I think it's Debussy caught, if his foot's planted, then you've got another shore-cross on your hands. It was it
was 2 feet
challenge.
late. He was fully airborne, studs up. He didn't complain.
Is that the one?
For me, this is a pretty good segue since we were talking about Southampton before, now Valencia. Don't you guys find it a little bit odd, switching over to EPL talk for a minute, about Manchester United's moves? Nani on a 5-year contract extension, Valencia 3-year contract extension, Luke Shaw, £30 million. Ander Herrera, £30 million. A combined 270,000 pounds a week in wages.
For who? For those two?
For three or four. What is
I
staggering?
was thinking
those
something
two.
like starting with Fellaini, they've now spent like 140 million pounds in the last calendar year.
There was a
They're
brilliant
not done
tweet.
yet.
No.
There was a brilliant tweet that somebody put out, wasn't there? That I retweeted it. Forgive me, I can't find it who it was, but they said that United fans were all moaning about how Man City have killed the transfer market with the money they spent, and then they listed the players United have spent, as John said, over £200 million worth. It's a little bit rich coming from that, isn't it? Really?
Yeah, but for an 18-year-old left back, and for Ander Herrera, that even Iturraspe was closer to the Spanish team than he was.
Yeah.
30 million on both, and then I think Luke Shaw, the reports were that he's getting 160K a week,
Oh, that's what I was going to ask.
and
Bloody hell.
Herrera's getting like 120K a week.
This
So
is a
between the
guy-
two, 280K a week just on two players.
It's one season, Luke Shaw. I mean, don't get me wrong. I'm sure. He probably will come good. I mean, he's a talented
How old is
player,
he?
but 18, 19.
That's a lot of Kinder eggs you can buy with that, isn't it?
just-
Hell. A lot of
I just-
Lego.
It makes me laugh. Can you imagine how much shit we would get if we spent that much money? Well, we wouldn't, but if we bought a player for that much money, I mean, again, if it's a striker or an attacking player or somebody's going to change a game, you can understand it. But a left back who's arguably not proven at any level yet, I mean, that's staggering business.
Well, that makes him the third most expensive defender ever after David Luiz and Thiago Silva now.
That's
Ever,
incredible,
and he's
isn't it?
18.
That's incredible.
And that
But
man
the
was
The English
fresh,
premium, right?
Yeah. Any other
Well,
country that he'd been
Don't
worth
be wrong,
maybe
if they
10.
can hold on to him for 10 years, that might end up being one of the best pieces of business they've ever done. But, I mean, if he's already on 100, and what'd you say? 100 and how much a week?
160.
18? I mean, let's say he does pan out. You think he's just going to be content with this contract?
Mm.
And you're going to have to give him what he wants because you've already plugged 38 million pounds into him.
I've just found that tweet. It was 28 million for Fellaini, 38 million for Mata, 29 million for Herrera, 34 million for Shaw, 129 million in less than a year. But according to United fans, City are ruining football.
So did
It's
he
quite a
did he
stat.
sign a 4 or a 5 year deal?
I think it was 5, wasn't it? Was it?
That's what I thought. £41.6 million in wages without bonuses over 5 years. So that player has just cost them 70 million quid.
The flip side of the argument that a
Wow.
lot of the journalists have said is that arguably he could be their right back for the next 10 to 15 years.
Left back, isn't he?
Left back, sorry. But then that's all very well and saying that, but he only takes one serious
Yeah.
injury.
One game against Stoke.
Yeah, or for that matter, a lack of form. I mean, look at Veron when they signed him. I mean, that didn't go well, did it?
No.
So I just think that when you're signing a player who's largely unproven to spend that much money, and it also
Well,
just
they spent
overconfirms-
20 million on Phil Jones.
Yeah, and Chris Smalling was what, 12 in the end? 12 million?
16.
16 million. And these are players that it just only confirms the arrogance and the overhypeness of English footballers. Because, John, you'd probably better speak than this, but I can speak from League One's point of view. If you can get a player of Aurier's ability for €8 million on the current market,
If he was English.
if he was English, he'd be 25. easily.
100 million.
I mean, and the same with the Spanish league. If you look at some of the players that are sold from the Spanish league to the UK, I mean, it's a fraction of the price that they would go for if they were English going the opposite way.
So someone made the point about Lallana being like 20 odd million pounds, and then how much he is not a patch on Santi, and Santi was about 14.
Yeah. But then that is why clubs will not buy British players, and you can see why they won't. And people criticise the likes of ourselves for bringing players through our youth academy, taking the likes of Traitor Gas, people like that, and it's.
I was thinking who you meant then. I don't know. Yeah.
It's you can understand, and even if you look at the Dutch cretin. We took him for what, 5 or 6 million, or I think it's even less than that from Feyenoord.
2.75, I think.
There you go. So when you bring them in younger and you can make players of them, it's good.
Thomas can kind of talk about this a little bit more, but I don't know how the MLS works, but I'm sure like most American sports, there's a salary cap.
I
instituted.
think so. I'm not too well versed in it, but I know it's pretty. I mean, it's an American league, so it shares a lot of ideologies with other American sports that have salary caps and things like that. But I'll be too honest, I don't follow it too much just because the level of quality of play is still so low that it's. I mean, once you. I mean, what is it? Arsene Wenger has a famous quote too, but basically once you get used to watching Arsenal every week for 9 years and you try and watch MLS, it's like, I mean, I could rather watch my little sister play high school soccer.
The thing is though, until some kind of uniform system is in place to limit what you can spend or what you can pay, I think football is on a road that, I mean, just a few years ago, 20 million was huge money. Now 20 million is standard fare for mediocre players. And now, how much is James Rodriguez going to cost? How much is Falcao going to cost when it's time for them to move? It's a situation. I think that the more we go on, the limited market is going to kind of skyrocket even more from where it is now because you only have a handful of teams that can pay that.
Well, I think when are you going to stop capping players from teams like Chelsea and various other teams that are now buying players simply to loan them back out so other teams can't buy them?
Kurt Zouma.
You know what I mean? Yeah, Zouma, who may never see a game for Chelsea, but there's more than that. Chelsea had, if I remember seeing the correct statistic this year, Chelsea had more players out on loan
22
than Arsenal, Manchester United, Liverpool, basically the other top 5 teams combined.
Yeah. Man City did it for a while, didn't they? When they first came in, they stockpiled all the English like Rodwell, Sinclair, and all that. Yeah. But they didn't really have any intention of
and
using.
And then look what happened to them.
But then on the flip side of that, the player should be strong enough to say, you know what, I don't want to move. I know obviously a lot of it's money, but if a player like Jack Rodwell, for example, had turned around to Everton and said, look, City are offering me 120 grand a week. I would like to stay at Everton. Can we not meet in the middle? I'm pretty sure Everton would have done all they could to keep the player. And look at Leighton Baines. I mean,
look at Seamus Coleman.
Yeah, exactly. I think sometimes it's easy to throw the club sort of under the bus and say, well, it's all the club's fault, but it's a player's responsibility to say, well, I want to play, and okay, they've got to be ambitious and think that they can break in. But
you get people like Courtois. Yeah, that petition to have to be able to play in the Champions League and that sort of thing against Chelsea, and now he's being recalled, but he doesn't want to leave Atletico. So I think it's starting to come to a point where players are having that mentality because they see it.
Yeah.
But for some that have more humble beginnings, I think that money will always be a draw, obviously.
I suppose it's a bit like Claudio Bravo moving to Barcelona, isn't it? Well, they've signed ter Stegen and they've signed Claudio Bravo, who's 34, I think I'm right in saying. So I suppose in that circumstance, you can understand it because it's probably his last big payday and, maybe gets a couple of games in and out for Barca and then quietly goes into the distance. But a player like of a Rodwell age, 21, 22, it just doesn't make any sense.
Just a quick thing on the MLS, because in case anybody's interested. From how I see it, MLS, the Major League Soccer, owns the rights to all the players, and every player gets paid a basic salary, which I think is about $50,000-$60,000 a year, maybe a little bit less. And then each club used to be able to have 1 or 2 prestige players, and then they could pay those whatever they wanted, which they tagged the Beckham law or the Beckham rule. And then I think that's up to about 3 players now. So then everyone, I think it's similar in Australia as well. You're allowed to, and in Australia it's called the marquee player, but in MLS, whatever, then you can pay any of those players whatever you want, but then you have to pay them yourselves. I think that's the gist of how it works over there.
I think there was talk, wasn't there, a while back? I don't know if this is actually happening or not, but there was talk that all the MLS kits are all Adidas, and there was talk that if they,
I didn't know that.
Every single MLS kit is Adidas. So, and there was talk that if they open, when that deal comes to an end in, it's either 2017 or 16, one of the two, there was talk that then the major other brands would start coming in And when that happened, they reckon that they'll do away with this whole sort of transfer thing where they have the, what do we call it, draft.
Yeah.
Where they'll draft players out, and they reckon that eventually that will be done away with because the sponsorship deals that they can then have from like Nike or Puma or whoever else it is, they reckon there'll be so much money then that they can afford to say, right, we'll scrap the draft laws and we'll just do it normally. But until you get players, Michael Bradley's probably the biggest name or Clint Dempsey as well, actually, are two of the bigger names to come back to MLS, having been successful in European football and still maybe at their peak.
That was a bloody travesty. How the hell did those fishmongers get Clint Dempsey, who is probably one of the greatest American living players at the moment, when they're just an average poor team? When he should have gone to a half decent team like Portland, and then
still
Portland
one of the biggest
would
deals,
have won it.
Isn't it?
Yeah, but
what a perfect segue, to our next game.
Yeah, absolutely.
Look at John pulling the strings.
Puppet master.
Okay, so the next game is United States 0, Germany 1. Did everybody watch it?
Yep.
What do you think?
I watched the Portugal game.
I watched both of them, but I think we should maybe let our guest talk a little bit about his US of America states.
Absolutely.
Go on then,
America.
Thomas. Make Kris happy.
I'm actually pretty thrilled Kris is supporting. No, it was a really interesting one because Germany's the team I picked to win the whole thing, and they have 3 Arsenal players, so I couldn't exactly cheer against them. But at the same time, I'm obviously an American still, and as much as I have a lot of gripes with our national team, and I think the exact opposite of Dempsey as you do, it was still really interesting because I went to a bar and watched it with 2,000 of my closest friends, even though it was a Thursday morning, so the support was pretty phenomenal. It's interesting to see how quickly soccer's taking off, especially here, which is probably one of the last places it could ever be soccer crazy, because we're already American football crazy to a very large extent in the middle of the country. But I thought it was a really interesting game just because it was basically played in a monsoon. There was all sorts of flooding and stuff beforehand. I guess people were having trouble getting there because there was like a foot and a half of water on the ground leading up to the stadium. But the pitch looked all right. And we got pretty pummeled the whole time, but we're still able to repel them until, obviously they got their goal through Thomas Mueller, and what a hit it was.
And my dislike for Clint Dempsey is only because it's unfair that Seattle got him and my lovely Portland Timbers didn't. If he'd have come to Portland Timbers, then he'd be a wonderful player. But as he's at those fish fuckers, he can go fuck himself with a haddock.
I absolutely hate Clint Dempsey. I think he's one of the most overrated players of all time.
Oh, he's not doing too bad in the World Cup for you, is he?
No, he hasn't. It's really annoying because
game.
It's not helping me. It's not helping me push my cause to my fellow Americans. They're not having it. But
who would you rather have up front? Would you rather have I was going to say Freddie Adu then. It's not Freddie Adu, is it?
Kondolowski.
No, not him. No, the other one.
Jose Altidore.
That's it. The other.
Altidore is broken at the moment. He's picked up that hamstring injury.
Yeah, but as a general rule, who would you rather have up front rather than Clint Dempsey?
I like Dempsey in the team. My problem with putting Dempsey in the team is the really endearing factor in why the United States wins or at least draws a lot of games, and maybe we shouldn't, is because you get that kind of American work ethic where everybody just runs the whole time for everybody else, and they have a really great team dynamic going on.
The opposite to England.
Basically. And then Dempsey basically plays for himself. There's not a better example of that than in one of the World Cup lead-up games. Even though it was just a lead-up game and it was a friendly and it didn't matter.
Nigeria.
Dempsey went in on goal with Altidore. Yeah, against Nigeria.
Yeah.
Dempsey went in on goal with Altidore. Altidore is standing waiting for the tap-in. It's just 2 on the goalie. And instead of passing it, Dempsey hit an awful shot right at him. He just goes for glory. I don't know. I'm not a big Dempsey fan. But, I mean, he's a good player. I just don't like him as a person. I don't know. But he
he's
keeps
a good
scoring
player
for us, which is not helping. He's just so selfish, and he's so I just feel like he disrupts the harmony of the team a little bit.
So who is your favorite
Michael
player,
Bradley,
then?
on the other hand, is awesome. I love Michael Bradley. I think he's a phenomenal player.
Yeah. Who's your
He's had
favorite
an awful
player
World Cup, coincidentally. So another good proof to my theories.
Yeah, so who's your favourite player in your team at the moment? Is it Bradley?
Bradley, yeah, by far and away.
Well, Thomas, tell us about the numbers we were talking a little bit before the pod started recording, about the kind of numbers that are showing up to watch the World Cup matches.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting because I mentioned before I live in Nebraska, and I live in the capital city, which is Lincoln, which has about 300,000 people. But then the United States as a whole, I mean, they're getting some of their best TV ratings they've ever gotten for live sports. out of the World Cup matches, which is really interesting that that's happening when you get lots and lots of pieces by like Ann Coulter and stuff that are criticizing the American soccer fan, and a bunch of people trying to say, oh, soccer's still never popular in the United States. Because even here in Lincoln, Nebraska, we got over 2,000 people at just one bar, and I know there was at least 3 or 4 showing the game on a Thursday morning. Like when people are working and things like that, you get your typical 8 to 5 workday here, and there was 2,000 people that showed up at one of those matches for the USA Germany game. It's just phenomenal because I wish they'd show up for English Premier League too, but I'm just glad the sport's growing in the United States, and the numbers are showing that. You're getting places like Chicago that are doing big watch parties in big parks and getting 10 or 20,000 people showing up to those. So it's
well,
really exciting.
Talking about numbers, I did a brief search in the FIFA website, and I'll get the link and we'll post it on our website. But registered football players, and this is from youth up to adult in the UK, numbering about 4.7, 4.8 million. In the United States, it's roughly the same figure, 4.5 million. But unregistered, which means that they're not registered with FIFA or with one of those top organizations, number in the 20 million. So total 25 million people play the sport in the U.S. from youth to adult. Women and men. The same thing in the UK, women and men, and from youth to adult. So those are staggering numbers for a sport really thought of as being one of the last options for a young. For a young adult to choose their path in school.
So, Tom, my cousin's called Tom, so that's why I'm used to saying Thomas. So what is your local, I'm just looking at a big map, I think your local team is Colorado Rapids, which is owned by Silent Stan, isn't it? Is that the one you have a hankering for in MLS, or do you not really have one?
I don't really have one, but I have been to matches before. But it's not usually Colorado here because that's like an 8-hour drive to Denver, like 7 or 8 hour drive.
You want to drive faster?
So the closer one is actually Kansas City. Yeah, well you can because there's nothing in western Nebraska. Pull up Google Maps and just look at western Nebraska. There's nothing there. But
I'm even looking at
the local one is Kansas City because they're only about 3.5 hours away. I've actually been there. I went to go a couple of years ago to watch them play New York Red Bulls because I wanted to watch Thierry Henry, and I chose the weekend. I planned it about a month and a half ahead, and then Thierry Henry had the nerve to have a little baby Prince the weekend before, so he didn't show up. So I saw Tim Cahill instead. The
next league down, the closest one, is Minnesota United, and that's in the NASL, not the original NASL. So have you got anyone at any kind of level? I'm now looking at USL Pro. You've got no local teams that play football at all?
No.
Well, start one. We'd have the Bergkamp Wonderland Nebraska Gooners.
Yeah, well, I know about 4 other Gooners in Lincoln, so it's kind of rough. It's
out of how many thousand? Did you say 300,000?
Yeah, about 350,000. Because the issue here is we're a really big American football state, and we have a collegiate university level team called the Nebraska Cornhuskers that everybody's extremely passionate about. So everybody plays American football, but I don't even. We've had that conversation. You poorly misguided soul.
How about MLS? Not MLS. NFL. What's your nearest team in that?
We don't have a close NFL team, but again, the closest one would be Kansas City. It would be the Kansas City Chiefs. So that's an interesting one because everybody's kind of a different fan of everybody else.
So do you have a baseball or a basketball team?
Not professionally.
Why the fuck does Nebraska even exist? What's the point in it? Why don't they just make it into a car park for the NFL teams?
A
lot of the world's food is made here. Does that count?
What is made there?
Yeah, beef and.
Oh, I love beef.
Yeah, I don't farm, to just clarify.
Yeah,
but
actually,
Nebraska beef is exported quite a few places. I found some in London when I was there about a month ago.
Oh. Can I ask Thomas a question? With regards to sort of youth quote unquote soccer in the US, over here in the UK, we've got what we would call sort of Sunday league teams. So i.e. where group of lads get together and they'll play in an adult league in the various counties.
Yeah.
What if you wanted to go out now and start a team or join a team? Are there a number of teams that you could join, or would you have to start your own team, or how would it work for you if you wanted to start playing in a soccer team?
Yeah, no, I mean, I'd have to pretty much start my own, as it turns out here. I mean, you can find, I think there might be like an adult league, but it'd be like one, and there's very few teams, because a lot of people will play, especially in like elementary school, pretty much everybody starts playing, which is like our very first like primary school when you're, 7, 8, 9 years old. A lot of kids will play then, but as you get older, it's a little bit tougher to find opportunities to play if you don't want to play seriously. The biggest issue with soccer or football not growing in the United States is because it's so expensive to stay involved in it and keep getting an education, which is why a lot of kids will drop out around basically like your secondary, like your high school, which is right before like university level.
Yeah.
Or unless you're very, very good, because otherwise it's just not worth it to stay in it, because you're paying thousands and thousands and thousands just to be in the team every year.
Is that a little bit like almost like with the, because you see with sort of NFL or NBA teams where, is it like you get like a scholarship, don't you? And essentially you go to university as part of that sport, essentially, and it's all funded for you from there. And that's kind of how a lot of kids
because not every university has a soccer team, a football team. So like the one I'm at doesn't have one that's sponsored by the university, but they have one that bears the university's name. It's called basically university doesn't sponsor them, but they can still say they're from the university. So they're what's called like a club, as opposed to like an actually NCAA, if you know what that is basically the organizing body of collegiate or university level athletics. They're not sponsored by them, but then they can still say, hey, we go to this university.
In the U.S., it kind of works by region. Some schools will have like volleyball. Some, not every school has volleyball. Some schools will have hockey. Some schools will have, basketball.
Exactly.
Will have football. So it's kind of pick and choose. And obviously, the sport that most likely gets left out if it's not popular in that region is going to be, football. Unfortunately,
I think we could. I think we could learn. I think we could learn a lot in the UK from how things are done in the US. I mean, from my perspective over here, yesterday I got asked to do some scouting and coaching of kids down here, just to sort of like promote the idea, because where I am in Plymouth and Devon, which is right down the arse end of the UK, a lot of big scouts for clubs like Arsenal, Man United, Man City, all the bigger teams, they very rarely come this far down. They'll sort of stop at somewhere like Bristol, which is just above where we are. And the idea of having the opportunity to essentially go to university to do football or golf, cricket, whatever it is, I think that's the way that we should be doing things, not just relying on a scout to come down
and that's where that draft system partially comes from as well.
Yeah.
As just a way to identify talent, because the thing to remember about the United States is it's huge. I mean, just to get across Nebraska, the one state I live in, Nebraska is about 400 or 420 miles east to west, which would take you about 8 hours to drive through from one end to the other. Which
2 hours in my car.
Which, for comparison, is Glasgow to London.
Wow.
To kind of compare how large that is. I mean, it is in general. So there's a lot of advances being made. There's actually a local company here that does different scouting videos. So if you're an athlete, you can like take videos of yourself and you can post a profile. It's easier for like scouts and stuff to find you, to bring you to university level for various sports and stuff like that. So it's getting a little bit better, but just logistically, that's part of why the draft exists, because otherwise, I mean, how do you keep track of that many athletes? The fact that Danny Carbassian found Gideon Zelalem is
No.
still kind of staggering, because, I mean, at that level, I mean, he was playing in a level where, I mean, he was playing on a very, very good select team, but the only way you get to those teams, and most of them are on the coast, East Coast or West Coast, the only way you get to those teams is you're either very, very, very good, like Zelalem, or you're very, very, very rich, which means even though you might have good players playing in them, sometimes the level of competition isn't that high because there's not that much development. It's just kind of what you do when you have that much money. So it's
in
really
Texas, they have a very famous football team, like European football, called the Longhorns, and that's where Clint Dempsey played. And like alluding to what Thomas was saying before, he had to get help from the other parents to pay for him to continue on the team. But that's how expensive it gets. And imagine had those parents not paid for him to be part of the team, he would have. we probably would have never heard of Clint Dempsey.
Yeah, well, ultimately that becomes the deciding factor for a lot of kids, for choosing another sport, because they don't necessarily have to pay for it. To do soccer, even though there's only a ball and some boots involved to play. If you want to be on a good team that, is at your level, as an athlete, if you're a good athlete, if you want to be on a team that's as good as the level you're playing at, you're going to spend a lot of money to get there. And so it becomes easier then to just shift focus and play another sport you like that's cheaper to play. So basketball or American football or whatever, where you can, where there's money involved to be able to go and do these things. You notice a lot of the big university teams that are very, very good in the United States are very small private schools that offer these scholarships. You don't get a whole lot of large universities like a Nebraska or a Texas or whatever that have very, very good teams, just because their priorities are elsewhere in American football or basketball or what have you. So it's interesting. The system's not quite in place yet to get the top level stars and get our top athletes choosing soccer or football rather than basketball or baseball or whatever.
So how do you feel about Zelalem? I'm just reading his Wikipedia page, and it says he hasn't decided to pick the USA, but he did withdraw from a Germany squad, of a youth squad, because then he would have had to play for them full time. So how do you feel about Zelalem possibly becoming an American international and representing Arsenal at the same time? Does that fill you full of joy?
Well, yeah, I mean, on the one hand it does, but on the other hand I'm not sure, because I thought I read something earlier in the year when he was trying to decide which one he eventually wants to play for, because I think he's a ways off from a senior cap still. But I guess there was some kind of issue that if he declared for the U.S. rather than Germany, it would basically veto his work permit to work in the United States, and then it might be a full year before he could get another one reissued, so he wouldn't be able to play. I don't know how much truth there is to that, but I was looking at that earlier. So from an Arsenal perspective, if he can't play because he declares for the U.S., then fuck that. He can declare for Germany, and I'll still be happy. I'll still watch him play.
Because he was actually at Hertha Berlin as a 5-year-old, I think it says here, or a 6-year-old. So then after that, didn't his family move to America?
For a couple of years, and that's when Danny Carbassiun found him. And then back abroad he goes.
So if anybody listening has got any links to the actual confirmed what's going on with Zelalem and which country he's picking, feel free to tweet us the link, and then we'll retweet it and share
I'd like to
it.
know more about that. The last I'd heard is he'd basically picked the U.S., but picking the U.S. at 17 years old is one thing, but you have to get the senior cap, and I think he's a little ways out from the senior cap still. So it'll be interesting. I mean, I'd love him. I think there's a lot of really good young talent coming through in the U.S. national team, which isn't quite there yet, but there's a lot of players I really like that are very young that are coming through, so I think there's a chance, but
I think if
most
the way
of them are imports.
If the way that it's I say likely to go, if Klinsmann gets his way, I would imagine it will be much the same as how Julian Green, how things happen with him.
Exactly. Yeah.
Where Julian Green, for those who don't know, he's on Bayern Munich's books. He was a youngster that Klinsmann invited to train with the US men's national team, and just got him in literally to train. They made a big deal of having him there. The whole team presented him with a shirt and sort of really made him feel welcome, and essentially just said to him, it's up to you who you play for, but we'd like to have you on our books. And then he made the choice to join up and stay, or essentially give up the German heritage and stick with the US, and that's where it's gone. So I would imagine if Zelalem gets games for Arsenal, or even if it's in the Carling Cup or whatever it's called nowadays, that's probably then when you'll see him be invited up for a friendly, and the rest will be history.
I have a feeling that'll happen as well, because basically what the U.S. was able to do, Germany has, when you look at their World Cup squad, they could field 11 guys. Or they could basically take a whole different 11 than they fielded against the United States and still be favorites for their next game. So guys like Zelalem are not going to, get in that squad. So the United States was able to go to Julian Green. We have very few out-and-out wingers, like what Julian Green is at, 19 years old or 18 years old, and say, hey, we're going to the World Cup soon. And you could probably have a place on the plane if you'd just like to maybe play a game before we go so we can declare you.
Yeah.
I mean, how do you say no to that as an 18-year-old kid that hasn't even seen a first-team game for Bayern Munich yet?
Yeah, exactly.
So, it's tough, but that's the way of the world. So
that's all interesting. So you are there, Kris. Sound like you're falling apart.
Sorry, I woke up this
cheers
morning
of joy for the U.S. qualifying from the group.
I woke up this morning with a horrible nose full of snot, so there's a real image for you all there. I'm all right. But,
the thing I did want to mention is the amount of money that Southampton are going to have: 30 from Shaw, 4 from Ricky Lambert. Then they're going to get 25 for Lallana, and
Schneiderlin, Lovren.
And then Lovren looks like them. Liverpool want Lovren as well. Schneiderlin is now that he's had a surprise call up to the France squad, because I think French John said that most of the teams in France or the national team didn't even know who he was. I think there was some quote from the French manager saying, "I've never even heard of this bloke," because he was a few years ago he was playing in the third tier of English football with Southampton.
Yeah.
And so now his value has gone up from maybe 7, 8, 9, 10 million to it's going to be 15, 16, maybe even more, because he's playing in the UK.
Gaston Ramirez is off as well by the looks of it. He's been talked about going back to Serie A. There's talk of him interesting.
So Southampton can have 100 million quid.
But they are
Mass
bringing in
exodus.
Graziano Pele from Feyenoord, apparently for 10 million quid.
Oh, when will they stop bringing in bloody players from shitty league? No, not
Yeah,
that Holland's shitty league, but taking gambles. Like, I could have told them that Ricky van Wolfswinkel at Norwich wasn't going to work out.
It's Koeman though, isn't it? Koeman managed Feyenoord last year, and Pele was the top scorer for Feyenoord. I think he got 28 goals. So if Koeman's worked with him before, it's not really a surprise that he'll probably bring back a few of the players that he's worked with.
Well, who's the manager of Southampton?
Ronald Koeman.
No.
Yep.
When did that happen?
About 3 weeks ago, just before the World Cup, it was announced.
Shit, that's what happens when you're watching 500 World Cup games a day. Is that the cheating
Ex-Dutch.
I know, he is that bloody free kick he scored against England when he should have been sent off.
Yep. Yeah, he was announced on. I don't know. In fact, there's a story just gone up today about him coming into England or jetting off to England today. I think it was.
Bloody hell, one of the greatest. It was a left back, wasn't he, for the Dutch? Was he a left back?
Christ, for memory.
Yeah, I think. Well, you're younger than me. I'm sure he was a left back, and they had one of the greatest free kicks on him. Remember, it's always him and Stuart Pearce with two of my favourite left backs. There again, if he's not a left back, just I'll say he's right back or centre back. We should move this on because we're just beginning. Hold on, I've got a message here. This one of you saying,
Speaking of the Dutch,
he
played
doesn't want. Oh, good job I didn't read
That's
that out loud, eh, John?
Fuck's sake, you're just like, I swear.
Oh, no. Yeah, so I'm not saying anything about what John's having for dinner. There you go. I think I've covered myself up nicely now. What were you just saying there, Thomas?
Say the Dutch play today. Started talking about the Dutch there.
Yeah.
Oh, well, we better finish up the rest of these groups. There was Portugal, Ghana. Did anybody see that?
John
I
watched that.
did.
I watched it as well. I thought Asamoah Gyan, who scored 600 goals in 5 games since he shit on Sunderland to go and play in the Qatar League or somewhere like that. So tell us a little bit about that game, John.
Well, I mean, I think, it was stretches where both teams had, a lot of opportunities. I think Ronaldo missed at least 4 clear-cut chances that if he was 100%, I think, United States would have had a hard time going through because I think they could have scored the 5 goals needed to progress. But, we all know that Ronaldo wasn't at 100% and that kind of favored a Ghana win. But then they just, I think they had a domination of about 25 minutes in that second half where it looked likely that they were going to score that second goal or, and even, turn the match around, but they just could never find the back of the net for all the domination in the game that they had.
So do you think, like I do, that if Ronaldo would have been on fit and on form like he has been for Real Madrid for the last 4 seasons, that they'd have got 6 points out of that group?
If we would have seen the regular Ronaldo, I just don't see how the U.S. or Ghana would have. How the U.S. would have won that one match, even though, like Thomas said, the American spirit of, fighting from whistle to whistle and having that unity in the squad, and, that's all very cavalier, but a fit Ronaldo makes a difference, and he just didn't have it.
His next game for Portugal is against Albania. So how the mighty have fallen. But they saw the way that he celebrated the goal when he scored it. Just walked away, didn't he?
Yeah, he never believed, did he? Never ever believed that he was going to do.
Mourinho came out and said that he kind of he didn't believe in his team, and fuck's sakes, when your alternative to pass out wide is Nani, I don't blame him.
Yeah.
I thought Nani was it Nani that did the pretended he'd been shot again, just to get someone else booked. I thought that was awful. But yeah, I thought the Ghana team were pretty good. They got some half decent players playing for them because there's always one or two African teams that do well at the World Cup. But I remember maybe 2 or 3 World Cups ago, maybe 10, 15 years ago, they were saying it won't be that long before an African team wins the World Cup. I would quite comfortably say I don't think an African team will ever win the World Cup now. I mean, the next 20 or 30 years. I'm not being horrible about any African teams, but it seems that some of them, like Nigeria, have reached a peak and Cameroon have reached a peak, and then they struggle to keep that peak up because then too many of the players will retire, and then it takes a few years for the next players to come through, and then by the time they're peaking, they don't have enough players to be able to consistently build, which is a shame. But African football is massive. And
to kind of put a line underneath this group, though, Danny, to ask Thomas, a healthy Ronaldo, in that match, do you think he makes a difference versus the U.S., or do you think that the U.S. has progressed enough that them coming out of this group was, the right result?
I think he does. I didn't actually pick the U.S. to get out as much as I wanted them to, so don't get me wrong. I was very pleasantly surprised we did, but at the time I picked who I was picking, it was because Portugal had a fit Ronaldo, is why I picked them over the United States. And I think what would have happened if you would have seen a fit Ronaldo is you would have seen a guy able to run around the field a lot more. And I don't think it's a coincidence that when Ronaldo assisted their equalizer, he had switched flanks to go one-on-one with Beasley, who is, let's just say, not the best left back in the world. And I think that tactical switch may have happened a heck of a lot sooner had Ronaldo had his full strength, had his full speed, had his full stamina, and been able to, be Ronaldo and dissect a game like he does. If you watch him play for Real Madrid, if it's not working down the left, he moves over to the right and goes and tears apart that fullback instead. So, I think it was a matter of time until he had a say on the game, just because, he was the best player in the world this year. I still think Messi's a better player overall, which is a different argument, but either way, he was one of the two top players in the world going up against a team that, sure, they work together, but, Beasley doesn't play for a major European team for a reason, and he's 31 years old. So, there you go.
Kris, what do you think?
Yeah, he would have had a lot more impact.
Do I think that Ronaldo would have made a difference? In that game, do you mean, or in general?
Just in general, in the group. If they would have had a healthy Ronaldo for the 3 matches.
Yes and no. My view on Ronaldo is a lot different to a lot of other people. He's clearly one of the best individual talents in the world, but I think that's half the problem. I think the reason he plays or is so good at Madrid is because he's playing around some world-class players in a world-class team, and I think that makes him a better player. When you've got someone like a Benzema making runs that open up the space for you to do what you do, or do what he does in La Liga, I think that makes a huge difference. And when these groups were drawn, I'll freely admit I wasn't following the US at the time. I was sort of subconsciously following them a little bit, but I wasn't supporting as such at that point. And when the group was drawn, it was like, so-called group of death. And I looked at it and I thought, no, I'm not so sure. I think the US can get out of that group. And Portugal, for me, they just kind of they got one tactic. It's like give the ball to Ronaldo and hope for the best. And I don't think there's too many players in that Portuguese side that I don't think are good enough to play in the same team as a Ronaldo type figure. On the flip side of that, if you had a Ronaldo in, for example, I don't know, maybe like Spain where there's for example, I think in that sort of team, yes, they'll bring out the best in him. But for me, when he plays for Portugal, you only have to look at the qualifier against Sweden. Without him in that game, there was no way they would get into the World Cup full stop. So,
but that's the point. A healthy Ronaldo.
I don't know.
That's the thing is he only needs 1 or 2 moments. Is why I kind of. You have to look no further than Messi so far in the World Cup. The rest of that, geez Louise, geez. Oh man, I can't think of the country right now.
Argentina.
There we go. Geez, I want to say Austria, and I was like, that's not even close. Anyway, the rest of that team hasn't done, hardly anything. Di Maria's tried, but Higuain's been terrible. Without Ronaldo or without Messi, where are they? He's had a couple wonder strikes that have got them points out of their games, and on they go. So I think that's, for my argument, I think that's my reasoning right there. But you never know.
No. It's all hypothetical. Well, and all I will say is... Sorry, go on, John.
Go ahead.
I was just going to say all I will say is that... told you so. All of my friends gave me so much shit when I said I'd support US, and no, I'm really pleased for them. And okay, yeah, they got a bit lucky against Ghana. I think it's fair to admit that. But they also got very unlucky against the Portuguese because they didn't deserve that point they got at the last minute goal.
Fifth minute, for fuck's sake.
And I think as far as the Germany performance, yeah, they were heavily defensive, but then look at the 2 chances in the last few minutes, it could easily have got a draw. And the mentality of going into a game knowing that you only need a point, I think naturally you are going to sit there and sort of think, well, let's keep it tight and see how we get on. And when it was 1-0 and Germany didn't really push on for the second, I couldn't really blame them for taking the result they got.
Well, and Germany wasn't overly motivated either. They just needed to not get their butt kicked, and they were through. So
exactly. And I think the draw almost favoured both sides as well, because I don't think Germany will fear. Algeria, isn't it? They've got, and I personally don't think the US will fear Belgium that much. So in a weird way, the results kind of fit the teams, and And I think all the US may even have said they'd rather play Belgium than Algeria at the moment, weirdly.
Well, we
Can I
spent...
just throw out there
Oh, go
that
on.
was not a group of death at all? I just
No,
want
I
to
agree.
throw out there for the American listeners that it was not a group of death. That's all I want to say.
Group of
Okay.
Deaths was
Sorry.
England.
Yeah,
Watching it
England's
and
was
being
by
in it.
far the group of death. Look no
That's
further
right.
than, 3 World Cup winning teams and Costa Rica won the group. That's the group of death.
Well,
Sorry.
for me, the easiest group was probably the one that's coming up last. Algeria 1, Russia 1, South Korea 0, Belgium 1. I watched both those games. I wish I hadn't. It's games like that give me World Cup lethargy. Does anyone have anything positive to say about any of those games?
The most interesting part of South Korea Belgium would have been listening to you pronounce the starting 11 for Korea.
Oi, actually, cream of some young boy in goal.
You're at it again.
Yeah, there's just because they have their surname first, don't they? So, but there's have we let Park Chu-young go yet?
Yeah.
Oh,
It was
I thought-
announced by the club.
I thought somebody they wiped out his they put it down as a loss, didn't they? I remember Steve was saying something about that. They've already written it off.
Yeah. He's there was a post on the official Arsenal website announcing that we've released 11 players the other day, and Park and Bentner were 2 of those. So I
What do
think
you think
he'll.
of Belgium? It's such a quandary that so much talent could play so badly together.
I'm not sure.
It's like Holland of the old days, isn't it?
Yeah, they haven't impressed me. I mean, just for a change, Liverpool have been linked with Origi, their striker that's come off the bench and provided the spark. And to be perfectly honest, I'm going to sound like a know-it-all here, but sod it, I'll go for it. He's had his breakthrough season at Lille this year in League One. He's not started every game. He's often been a sub. But for me, he's much more of a player to watch than Lukaku is. And all this talk about how great Lukaku is, I know our very own Gimli's a massive fan of Lukaku. I'm not buying it. I don't rate him at all. I think he's he's big, he's bulky, and he'll get you the odd goal, but I don't think he's got half the potential that a lot of strikers at his age have got. His work rate isn't particularly good, and I think I think you may even see Origi get a start. He's merited it. But Belgium
is weirdly bad with his back to goal, isn't he?
He is,
such a big guy.
He really is.
And he's a bit injury prone as well.
And as I said on the last pod, as much as I can't stand Mourinho, there's a reason why he's not been given a chance at Chelsea. He's not, for all his faults, and he's got 1,000 of faults, Mourinho that is, he obviously knows what he's doing, and bringing in Costa. I think Lukaku is one of those players that will look back in 8 years, 10 years time and go, yeah, he was quite good when he was young, but he never really went anywhere. And that for me is
Nobody talking about Benteke either.
No, funny that.
One of the reasons I'm kind of gutted about the Belgium squad is I was looking forward to seeing Michy Batshuayi.
Oh, the
the guy
Standard
from
Liège?
Standard Liège. Yeah.
He's hardly
Yeah.
got looking, has he? In fact, has he
But Origi got picked before him, I think.
Yeah.
Do you know if that was based on form or an injury to Batshuayi? And if I'm
Go on.
fucking that name up, which I probably am, I'm sorry. I apologize.
I can never pronounce it either. I think the reason that Origi's been picked is mainly because he's one of those sort of players that he often makes an impact in a game when he comes off the bench, and he's the sort of player that he'll change the dynamic of a front line. He offers a little bit more, whereas I think I'm not even going to attempt to pronounce his name. He's an out and out winger. That's all he does. He's up and down. He's pace and he's speedy, but there isn't a lot more to his game. Origi is a lot more of a front man and offers that little bit more. And also the coach, whose name escapes me, Wilmots, is it? Mark Wilmots? He's a big fan of Origi, from what I've read. And I know that he prioritises him as far as the striking option goes. But to answer your question, I don't know whether there's a specific reason behind why Origi's got the game time other than he generally does make an impact from the bench.
So is that group over and done with?
Algeria. We haven't talked about Algeria.
Oh,
Yeah.
What's there to say?
They were impressive. I mean, Russia were fancied by few people to get out of this group. I actually thought the Korean Republic would get out of the group, and shows what I know.
I thought Russia would, with the amount of money they spent on Capello.
Yeah.
They must be on about £500 million a year or something, and they have just done nothing.
This isn't the World Cup to have a defensive
I thought
coach.
Russia would as well.
One of the very few times in this World Cup where I've had anything right, I picked Algeria to get out of the group.
And there you go. And Russia's tactics were all wrong. I mean, this is, if there is ever a World Cup that you don't go out with a defensive mentality, this is the one to prove it. And
they had so much time to see that because of all the early games, because they were one of the last people to kick off their games, the last group.
But Capello doesn't do attacking football. He never has. He never will. And that's the way he
found
is.
out as
He was crying at the end too, wasn't he?
He was. Mainly because he realised how much money he's going to lose when he gets sacked. But
Putin's going to put him in a black cell somewhere.
I mean, but Algeria, fair play to them. I mean, they came out and they got the goals they needed in that game against Korea. They've got a couple of players. Faguli is one that John will know a lot about. He's a hugely talented player, and fair play to them. That they were probably the pick of the African sides in qualifying, which a lot of people forget because they're not as fashionable as Nigeria or Cameroon or anyone of that sort of ilk. But they've been impressive, and this is probably as far as they'll go because I think the Germans will comfortably dispatch them. But
the reserve team would beat them 5-0.
Probably.
Well,
but
I think the thing with North African teams is like the question is which African team is the first team to represent Africa at a World Cup? Now, I didn't know the answer to this. I mean, I thought it was a trick question, so I picked Tunisia. Do you know who it was?
Egypt?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I think people forget that there is teams from North Africa that do play a completely different style of football. Egypt, Tunisia, Algeria, Morocco.
They won the African Nations Cup, didn't they, Egypt as well?
Yeah, Morocco were for years a really, really good team. They had like Mustafa Haji, who was at Coventry, and you had another young Moroccan bloke. I'm sure they were Moroccan.
Shamak.
Yeah.
They had Haji. Did you say Haji then?
I said Mustafa Haji.
Yeah, Mustafa. Yeah, Coventry, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, they've had a few over the years. Sort of players that have made had a couple of games in European football and then not really gone any further. But
you do tend to forget that the North African teams are there. If you just without thinking about it, you think Africa, you think all the East Coast and South Africa and the West Coast, but you forget about all those teams. Well, I sometimes do, and I go, of course so. I don't know why I tend to group them along with the Middle East in that kind of area of like the heat and the way people look, and I suppose it's just the migration of people over the years. There you go, that's enough geography because I don't know what I'm on about. Right,
we did American geography earlier.
Oh dear, my geography's not too bad. Right, so well done to Algeria. Russia, if you feel, I think we've got our Russian Anna coming on Sunday, so there'll be tears there because her team have done very bad. And Belgium.
That was a very good goal though, that Cochran goal for Russia.
Yeah, it was a hell of a header.
I love a good towering header. Yeah.
Really good header, the first time cross. It was a really good team goal. And
that striker's what, only 22, 21, something like that?
He's the poster boy. Poster boy of Russian football. He's like the David Beckham of Russia, if there is such a thing.
Andrei Arshavin should have been there playing. He'd have won in the World Cup.
He'd
have
loved
that on Twitter and got some pretty interesting responses.
He'd have loved the food out there, wouldn't he?
So Belgium getting through that group is just if Belgium would have been in virtually any other group, they wouldn't have got through, would they? I don't think they would have done.
The way they played, no.
No, they've been very
defensively.
poor.
They've been very good, but I think
Company's been weird as well, hasn't he? He's not been on his form. So many players don't manage to bring their club form through to international form. They've all gone John Barnes on them.
Or the reverse, when you look at Colombia, which we'll come on to in a minute. If you look at some of the players they've got, I mean, like their left back couldn't even get in West Ham starting 11. I mean, it's like same with Chile. I mean, look at their defence made up of like West Brom players and who was it?
Cardiff.
Cardiff,
Cardiff,
players like that.
There's three of them, and they're all available, aren't they? Just imagine those three play. If you had all three playing together in the Premier League, they probably do all right, but individually,
not so good.
No.
Well, look at Joe Campbell. He didn't I mean, I know he's an Arsenal player and he's had a hell of a World Cup, but otherwise, I mean, his season at Olympiacos wasn't that good. He had some flashes in the pan, notably his goal against United, and then he's absolutely murdered people at this World Cup.
Yeah.
No, his season in Greece was pretty decent.
Yeah, he got lots of assists.
It was decent, but it was decent at best. It wasn't exactly standout.
No.
He got 6 or 7 goals, didn't he?
Yeah, but he was standout in the way he created and the way he kind of.
I guess I can't say I've seen him. So.
His assists, he did have quite a lot of assists sometime. In one game, I think he got 2 goals and 4 assists. But just as a progressing player, I think Thomas is making the point that you wouldn't think he was the same player that was playing for Olympiacos that is leading the world stage for Costa Rica.
Yeah, you didn't look at that group and go, fuck me. Uruguay, Italy, England, be prepared because you got to deal with Campbell.
Yeah, but next season, if he's at Arsenal, people will be going, oh, watch out for Campbell.
I'm really excited to see what he does in preseason.
Oh, yeah, and I think someone tweeted a quote from him saying, looks like I'll be at Arsenal next season, which is brilliant.
He says he wants to come back. Arsene Wenger, I think, said on French TV that we'd at least try him out in preseason and see what happened. But give that boy some service. I want to see what he can do. Oof.
Yeah,
right,
he ain't going anywhere.
Let's move on to the next stage, which is the round of 16. There's only been 2 games played so far. The first game was Brazil-Chile.
Heartbreaking.
Which I did. I put a bet on there. I put a bet that Chile would get through there. I put 4 different bets on covering all of my asses, and they all fucking lost because I didn't realise that it wasn't in. It was in 90 minutes only. Robbing Paddy Power pigs.
Yeah,
but I thought Chile was so unlucky. But there again, so was Brazil with that goal that I don't think that Fregi goal was handball. That was shoulder ball, and it may have. Yeah, was it?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Oh, was that the John with the moustache?
Can tell by the arse. No, that's Luis Gustavo you're thinking of.
There's a very porn starry looking moustache, didn't he? That's very dodgy looking. But I thought it was for the first 90 minutes, it's one of the best games of the World Cup for me. It was absolutely fantastic. But then the extra half an hour was just dire, horrible.
Killed both teams, didn't it? The effort they had to put in, and Chile were unlucky. And let's not forget, Brazil were 30 seconds away from being out because that shot from Pinilla is 2 inches, 3 inches lower.
At the top of the bar. And I think if Vidal would have been fit, he would have played the whole 2 hours. Is it 2 hours? And I think that he could have made the difference. But fucking what? I mean, I've never seen him play, but what a brilliant player.
It's a running joke. It's going to carry on, isn't it? Chile was so unlucky in it, and it's a real shame. I mean, their support's been fantastic. The way they play, their coach. I mean, there's a lot of things that a lot of people are going to miss about Chile. Hopefully, one of them will appear at a certain football team that plays in North London in red next season. Fingers crossed, fingers crossed, fingers crossed. But yeah, there's a lot to admire about them and the way they sort of conduct themselves as far as their footballing ethic and their attacking play goes. Colombia is probably going to be the hipster's choice. We'll come on to in a minute to convert their allegiances to. But Brazil, on the other hand, I hold my hands if I picked them pre-World Cup to win it. They've not impressed me once, not once. I mean, Neymar is their one sort of shining light. Luis Gustavo has been pretty impressive as a holding midfielder, but defensively they look pretty average. The way that Alexis got the space he got to put that in, I think I'd have put that away, the space he had. And they look like a side, Brazil, that are just sort of, they kind of sat they're sat in the car and the motor's running, but they haven't got any acceleration to get out the drive, and it just feels like they're scratching around for form, and they haven't impressed me at all.
They have a few brilliant players. They're kind of, sliding past on, a bit of luck and the performances of Neymar. The minute that they have to play cohesive football, where they have to defend as a unit, you see the cracks.
Yeah.
And Chile showed that, I'm going to find it very hard that they stop that front line for Colombia. Because they do everything that Brazil is bad at, covering on the flanks, defensive style of football, they're tough. I just think that you can bully Brazil.
Yeah.
And
that's going to be a hell of a game though, Brazil-Colombia.
Yeah, absolutely.
Next Friday, 9:00 in the UK.
Yeah. I won't be able to see it. Darn.
Thomas, what were your views on the game?
I watched it kind of off and on. I was at the lake all day yesterday, which was pretty fun, but we managed to get a hotspot going on a buddy's phone and then watch the game on a laptop that way. We were pretty desperate. So it was an awesome game, though. It was totally worth it. Like you said, the first 90 minutes were one of the better games in the entire World Cup. Chances going both ways. Good defense being played in some places. Very foully, but thought Howard Webb controlled it all right. And then from then on, the last 30 minutes of the extra time was not so hot, and then it culminated in what was one of the worst, but still extremely dramatic penalty shootouts I think I've ever seen. Like, it wasn't awful viewing, but that was awful penalty shots.
Who was the guy for Chile?
Charles Aránguiz.
Oh wow!
What a penalty that was.
Yeah, that was the one that won it. You mean? Or not? No, not that one.
The one that Chile, Aránguiz, that he looked at the final whistle, he was absolutely shot to shit. He could barely stand.
Yep.
And
was that one that had all the strapping on his legs?
No, that was Gary Medel. Aránguiz was the one that just walked up and just casually just smashed his foot through it
really,
straight
really hard.
And it really cheeses me off when you hear commentators say, "Oh, he's picked out the top corner with that shot," and it's like kind of halfway up the goal. I'm like, that's not the top corner. That's the middle. That penalty was the top corner. I mean, any lower, that was.
Cesar was trying to get out of the way.
Yeah, that was the one I saw the GIF this morning of the you hit a good. I think Squawka posted it. It was like, you hit a good penalty when the goalie flinches, and they're showing the penalty, and literally Julio Cesar goes, "Oh my god!" Like
just
thought I was gonna die.
Wave it goodbye. I mean, it was just I wouldn't risk leaning back to that degree and hitting it with that much power, but it was almost just like, I do this every day. It's just a hell of a penalty from a hell of a player.
Do you think maybe Bravo has started a new trend in goalkeeping where he's going to be pointing? Because people probably don't know, but there was a bloke who played in goal for Ipswich in the early 80s, and that season Ipswich conceded, give or take, 10 penalties, and the people missed all 10 because he would stand 2/3 of the way over the goal. And so that meant every single time he knew where people were going to put the penalty. And I can't remember the goalkeeper's name. I'm thinking Paul Cooper, but I don't know if that's it. But he made people by standing there. And I noticed a little bit Bravo yesterday. He was standing more to his left as we were looking from the back of the goal. And then he was doing the pointing thing, wasn't he?
He put Hulk off, didn't he?
Yeah.
He pointed to the...
But he didn't do it to Neymar, did he?
No.
He did it in FIFA, does that count?
Yeah, I do it in FIFA as well. Stand to one side, they often go the other way.
But I'll try and find that out, and I'll tweet it on the podcast account, the story about the Ipswich goalkeeper who did that. And it's surprising more people don't do it, because if you're going to stand and you're going to have 2/3 of the goal one side and a third one the other side, as a player, every time you're going to be thinking, unless you're really good at placing, you're going to go the 2/3 side, and then the goalie knows, well, there you go, that's where I've got to put it. Yeah. That's where I've got to be going. But I thought that pointing thing, I think that's something we might start seeing in the Premier League next season with a few cheeky goalkeepers.
Yeah.
That Neymar stuttering for his penalty, though.
The John Aldridge stutter.
I've seen him take a few penalties because I've watched quite a lot of the Brasileiro when he's playing for Santos, and he has missed quite a few penalties in his career. He missed one for Brazil in a game, I think it was against Mexico from memory. I think it's a friendly in the lead up to the World Cup. And that stutter step, I mean, it's bordering right on illegal. Some referees
it's almost stopping, isn't it? You're not allowed to stop.
Exactly. And it doesn't fill me with confidence. I understand the reasons behind it. It's all to put a keeper off and mask it. And it was a hell of a penalty, in fairness to him, but it never convinces me when he does all that malarkey.
So what do you lot think in general to Neymar, who's 22? He's only just gone 22 in February. 53 games, 35 goals for Brazil. Do you think he is going to break the goal scoring record, the appearance record, and to go down as a world great with the likes of Pelé, Maradona, and the likes
Neymar.
of that? Yeah.
The problem that we encounter a lot of times with Brazilian players is they always start brightly, don't they?
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
How is he gonna cope? How does he, continue his career? It's all about that.
Credit where credit's due. I mean, I'm a 50-50 on him. I'm a huge fan of the amount of sort of talent he's got, but I'm not a fan of the whole. Again, when he was at Santos, less so for Barcelona, but he does like a dive. He does like a theatrical fall, and also as a sort of a very low level footballer. I play right back, and if somebody does all that step over shit, I will put them through the hedge.
Put them down, mother trucker.
I mean, I'll go straight through the back of them. I'll stamp down the Achilles, and I'll knock them up in the air because. There's a difference between.
Sportsmanship is dead.
Damn right. There's a difference between doing a trick, getting a half a yard, and swinging across in. When you're doing all the dancing around shit, I mean, I'm not having that.
On the left wing when he went round the players.
Yeah, I'm not having it. Yeah, I would have killed him. He would have been through the stadium and over the back of the stands. But I mean, I suppose for Neymar, you've got to admire the fact that he's essentially got. The hopes of a nation on his shoulders, and he really has, because without him, that Brazil team
very
probably don't
average.
get through the group. Yeah,
You
I
know,
mean,
when you
it's
bring Joe on, you know things aren't going right.
yeah, exactly. And also fair play to him. You know, he stepped into Barcelona where he knows he will always be second fiddle to Messi. He's often played out of position for Barca because he's not really a natural sort of wide striker. He will drift wide like Henry did for us. But his best position when he was with Santos was always the number 10 or out and out forward. So you have to respect that. But like John says, is he still going to be doing that in 2 World Cups time? I'm not so sure. I mean, time will tell, I guess.
How big is Neymar in the U.S., Thomas?
Everybody knows who he is. He's one of those players that everybody knows his name: Messi, Ronaldo, Neymar. And I think part of that has to do with this World Cup being in Brazil, so Neymar is on everything.
Yeah.
But I mean, everybody knows who he is, and you only have to watch him play once to get everything you guys just said. Phenomenally talented player, but in the U.S., he has. I mean, there's a large circle of people that adore him for his talent, but then there's also a large circle of people that in the U.S. they have very, very little time for diving and play acting and things like that. And for better or for worse, that's a large part of Neymar's game as well. So. Everybody knows who he is, but not necessarily all for good and all for bad.
He's no Nicholas Bentner, is he? Let's be honest.
No, never the greatest striker
people
ever.
People don't realise that it's seen as a skill, and it's something the fans like to see in Brazilian football. That when you play league football down there in Brasileiro or Serie A, whichever you want to call it, because it's both. That it's not seen as you dirty diving, cheating shitbag. It's to try and pull one over on the referee. It's what you do in football.
But that's the same with the whole bike scandal with Uruguay, isn't it? I mean, in South American football, the dark arts are very much part of how they play football. It's very much part of what they do. Every game.
Maradona,
absolutely.
Yeah.
The mentality in a lot of South American football, and John, I'm sure, correct me if I'm wrong, but from what I hear and what I've read and what I've watched, it's very much you win at all costs. You do what is required to win. Suarez's handball in the last World Cup against Ghana, it's a prime example. You do what it takes to win. You ask questions later. And over here, it's very different, even European football. And that's why a lot of players that will first come into the British game or the European game will often be criticised if they do things differently, because that's not how we do it. In jolly old Blighty, we won't have that. So, I mean, I'm all for skills and I'm all for ability. I mean, we've had some of the greatest in the world, Bergkamp, Henry, etc. But I'm more of a person that, use your skill, get past your player and get a shot away or get a cross away. Don't try and beat somebody and then go back and try and beat him again because you look like an idiot.
But the thing is, every player has that moment where they cross that line. I think it's the serial, speaking about Suarez, just serially doing it, on a constant basis, with the biting. This is third offense. You have Henry with the handball against Ireland to get into the World Cup. Yeah. You have Zidane's headbutt. You have Maradona's, hand of God. So, doing it once, okay, you get a pass. It's the continuous, need to do it and try to get away with it. I think that most, people have an issue with.
Like the England team didn't even realise what had happened, some of them, until they saw the replay after the game. But on the world's biggest stage with 1,000 camera angles. But John, do you think the Neymar was worth the £5 million that Barcelona paid for him? It was $5 million, wasn't it? Was it $4 million or?
Yeah, supposedly it was a 22 million euro transfer that has turned into nearly 100 million euro disaster for Barcelona, with the resignation of their president, and now just a couple of weeks ago, the judge restated that there was wrongdoing and there's going to be back taxes to be paid and the whole bit. So,
ouchie! So your bills are going to go up then to pay for it.
You get things shady like that, and that's why. Barcelona is a little off-putting for me.
Yeah, I saw you were getting grief the other day for being a Barcelona fan. I thought, well, you're not, if anything, because you moved to Madrid first, you follow Real Madrid, but you've only got one team you support, don't you?
Well, considering that I've been following Arsenal since '91, from Texas,
paying a fortune every month,
thousands of dollars to travel to London when go to Highbury, just my watching the team alone weekly was $50 for the matches on the weekend. When tickets to the game were £5, £10. That was kind of funny to be called a plastic. But I don't support anybody but Arsenal, but I'm here in Spain. So, what I do on my account from Twitter is just give you guys all the Spanish news that pertain to our club.
If you're going to try and insult him, at least get the Spanish club that you allege that he supports right, because he's definitely Real Madrid and not Barcelona. If you put a gun to his head and he had to pick one, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, just because of that was my adopted European home when I got here.
Yeah.
I mean, if you're gonna, if you're gonna insult me with a little bit of factual basis.
Try and get it a little bit right. Anyway.
Who does that?
Oh,
it takes all the fun out of it.
Johnny Plastic cunt.
The first C-bomb, and yet again it was Kris. Sorry.
Yeah. What do you mean yet again?
Sorry to the little 6-year-olds, if any of you are listening.
What do you mean yet again?
I don't know. I'm just picking on you.
I'm always well behaved.
It's either pick on you for that or your choice of music, and I thought the music one might go on for a while, so...
Yeah, don't get me started on the mighty music taste, for God's sake.
Oh dear. Right, later today we have the Netherlands v Mexico. And Costa Rica.
So we didn't
talking Colombia?
On the Colombia game.
Bloody hell, of course we have. Yeah. Yes, I've got the bloody page there in front of me. Of course I have. Yeah, Colombia 2, Uruguay 0. I thought that was a really good game. I thought Jackson Rodriguez, or however he wants to be, Jackson Jackson. I thought
James, don't call me James Rodriguez.
Yeah. That's it. I thought he was fantastic, wasn't he? What a player coming in from wide. And I checked his stats for Monaco, and because I'd forgotten, I was just saying before the pod, I was saying to Thomas, and because Dom, I don't know if Dom is still there, because he was going to join us, but then he's is he still there? Is he still listening? No. Oh no, he's gone. He was there just listening for a while. But this season for Monaco, he only scored 9 goals in 34 games, of which he started 30 of them. And the season before that at Porto, he got 10 in 24. Then before that at Porto, 13 in 26. And then the season before that at Porto, 2 in 15. And before that it was in Banfield in Argentina. And he got 4 in 30. And it's not bad because he's only 22. But I could honestly, I remember the deal because they bought 2 players, didn't they, for massive amounts of money.
João Moutinho.
Yeah, but bloody hell, what an investment that kid is. He's absolutely unbelievable.
I'll give you some information on him for League One if you want.
Yeah.
Last year, obviously, when Monaco got a fuckload of money, and he was one of the sort of the golden boys to come in. Him, Falcao, Jeffrey Kondogbia, they were the kind of the big deals, as well as if you can count Eric Abidal as a big deal as well. But yeah, he came on and or sort of came into a midfield of Monaco that was a little bit disjointed. They weren't really sure how they were going to line up, and it was only towards the end or the back end of the season where his form really kicked in for Monaco. And I think you'll see the best of him next season when he's sort of more settled into a team and a structure. Whereas Monaco last year, as I say, that they started the season well, but I think a lot was expected of them. And when it was clear that PSG were going to run away with the league, obviously they had Ranieri in charge, so there was a lot of tinkering, there was a lot of moving of formations. Yeah, and you often saw James being played out of position. Or he would either be played out of position, or everything would have to go through him, which obviously puts an enormous amount of pressure on essentially still a young player. And I think when Monaco go through yet another rebuild this summer, which is likely to happen if Falcao moves on, that's probably when you'll see the best of him for next season, when he's in an established settled midfield with an established settled position. And if Monaco ever needed a reason to play him in his proper position, they only had to watch the goal that he scored last night, which is my
goal of the tournament.
It was a stunning strike, and the thing I loved about it the most was the ability to look over his shoulder and have a look at the goalkeeper's position before hitting it. I mean, to do that in a split second, to have the time to sum up the options available and then turn and hit it in that precise a way with that much power was just fantastic. And to be fair, the second goal was equally good as well. Well, not equally good, but a very good goal.
It's such a talent. But he has now scored 7 goals in his last 6 games for Colombia. What a I'm just going to shut up. I forgot the Holland game. See, on our telly, people who moan at me for calling them the Netherlands, on our telly it said Holland in England. It says Holland v Mexico.
The only people that will be wound up by it are actual Dutch people. That's the general consensus, I think.
Oh, but then I had melted Edam on a burger last night. It was a burger from the butcher's, and melted Edam. Porn in a bun.
That's why you had your
porn burgers.
Yeah.
And then after that, I watched some pork.
Pre-match poo.
Yeah, so I'm watching that game now because Thomas just said I forgot it was on. But yeah, Thomas and John, what did you think about the Colombia game?
Well, I think just everything that Kris just mentioned. I think there's one obvious talent that's shining at this World Cup for Colombia, and that's James.
And don't call me James.
Don't call me James. But just call him J-Rod. We'll do the American thing.
Hey.
Call him J-Rod. But I think Cuadrado has, accounted very well for himself. Kind of what we all wished Gervinho was going to be at Arsenal.
Bless him.
Bless him. But, I think it was, very surprising that Sanchez has stepped up into that defensive midfield role the way he has after the loss of Valencia pre-tournament. And, Falcao really hasn't been missed. So imagine, as good as Colombia have been, how much better would they have been with a fit Falcao in Valencia?
Yeah,
wow.
Scary, isn't it? And a quick note for David Ospina as well. Thought he played very well last night. For everything he had to do, he made a couple of very, very good saves. One from Cavani, I remember. He's a very good goalkeeper, and as we mentioned on previous pod, he's available on a free. So Arsene, give him a bell.
Thomas, what were your views on the game? Did you see it, or you were too busy? Were you fishing at a lake, or were you jet skiing, or skinny dipping, or?
All of the above. Definitely the skinny dipping too. Or sometimes I'd rather call it chunky dunking sometimes. That's right.
Were you displacing much water? That's what we all need to know.
Yeah, the water level in the lake is now much higher. So anyway, no, I did see good parts of that game, including again easily the goal of the tournament so far for me. But I was actually just looking up some statistics on James Rodriguez, J-Rod. And comparing him to Ronaldo and Bale, actually, 2 players that play similar roles for him, even though he's more of a number 10 than a winger. But when you look at his numbers he put up for Monaco last season, they're staggering when you compare him to some of the best players in the world. He averages an assist basically every 3 games, which is more than Ronaldo managed and barely less than Bale. He creates 2.5 chances per game, which is over a chance more per game than any of Alexis Sanchez, Ronaldo, Bale, and Lucas Moura. Who are players that I feel are very similar. That's more than 1 chance per game more than each of them per game. He averages like 50% dribbling, so 50% of the time he takes you on, he beats you, which is barely less than Ronaldo and Bale. I mean, his statistics are amazing. He gets fouled more than any of these guys, including
22
Ronaldo,
years
who dives
old.
a lot.
Yeah,
and he's 22. Yeah, I mean, he's an absolutely staggeringly good player. His goal scoring's not quite there yet, but looking at the World
22.
Cup, looks like that's the next thing he'll develop.
And
so
again,
if he pulls a Ramsey and adds goals, he's going to be one of the best players in the world.
And that just comes back to what I said earlier. He needs to be played in the right position. If you stick him wide, as Monaco have done a couple of times this season, you're not going to get the best out of him. If you stick him behind the striker,
playing for the right team. But yeah, you're right.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's make no bones about it. The only reason he ended up at Monaco was because of the money and the amount of money.
He was third party owned at the time too, wasn't he? So he didn't really have an option in it.
Yeah,
right?
I'm trying to think.
Am I right in saying that?
Where did you say it came from, Danny? Where is it?
Porto.
It was Porto, yeah.
Yeah.
I thought I was cracking up then.
They buy a load
John, do you know
of
was he
players.
one of those players that was third party owned, and that's like kind of like how
Yeah,
Falcao ended up at
and
Monaco and that whole thing?
Steve was also saying in the WhatsApp group that 22% was owned by Mourinho's agent.
That's right. Yeah, that's right.
Sweet.
Jorge Mendes, isn't it? Jorge Mendes, another big sort of like, the players that he manages, quote unquote manages as an agent, they go where pretty much he tells them to go. And I think I remember when they signed him, Rodriguez with, Moutinho was billed as the bigger player, arguably.
Yeah.
He was the majority of the 40 odd million that they paid. He was going to be the big superstar, and weirdly for Monaco this year, arguably, Toulon has outplayed João Moutinho, and that's quite bizarre, thinking that Toulon's about 106 and came from Malaga.
We've been linked with him like every year since I've been following Arsenal, which is 9 years. So
he's a good player, but to have a player of João Moutinho's talent, you'd think he would have been the one that shone. But weirdly, Toulon was probably the better player for Monaco.
Well, Rodriguez was quoted saying this, so let's not get our hopes up with these people that are talking about Wenger had dinner or breakfast in the same hotel. Quote unquote, this is a direct quote from Rodriguez. The Spanish league is one of the most important in the world. Hopefully I'll get to play there. It would be a dream to play in Spain.
Which I saw when you posted that immediately led to Ozil Mark II speculation. So now he's gonna go to Real Madrid to eventually get his move to Arsenal.
I tell you what,
baby steps.
Mallorca are going to have a hell of a player when they sign him, aren't they?
Chris, didn't you say that one of the biggest twat ITK morons? I despise. Oh, what a tit! Why do people? I was surprised that 11. I only follow, I think, 250 odd people, and out of those, I think 11 or 12 follow that moron. And everything is man lands on moon with face made of cheese. Click this link to see more. Now, do you people really? IndyCarlia.
Yeah.
Do you people actually think that he's going to learn anything from that site, from clicking on that link, other than going to his site, registering a click, and then that's what his sponsors on the site are going to do?
I think you're taking it too seriously. I think he's a parody account, and I think it's quite obvious with
No, that's Indy Liar. Indy Liar was the parody account. IndyCarlia is an actual proper bloke.
There's a few that are parody accounts, but the original one, he genuinely thinks he's on the money. I think with these agents, in all seriousness, clicks and links obviously is a big thing for them. But I think a lot of things is that all three of us can all sit here now and go, right, pick a name, and there's a 50-50 shot that will be right. So if you get 2 or 3 things right, you can turn around in a year's time and go, told you. It's like betting. You'll get a big win once in a while.
What do we all think of Wayne Vesey?
Oh, God, please don't.
Wayne, late to the party Vesey, that all of a sudden now, some mysterious article he wrote that didn't name any names. Obviously, we're linked to players in Spain. Now, that link is Sanchez. So, of course, I couldn't tell you then, but it was Sanchez that they were meeting. The rep, Arsenal was meeting with the reps of Sanchez. Oh my God, it's just shoddy journalism. I don't even think you can call it journalism at this point.
It's just number wang.
Hey, John, I have a question for you actually. So, Guillem Balague, I don't know how to pronounce his name at all. That was the worst American pronunciation. Yeah, that's the most American pronunciation ever, and I'm sorry, listeners. But does he ever get anything right? Is he to be believed at all? Because every single year, because he always keeps getting on Sky Sports. Sometimes he ends up on like ESPN, and everybody like portrays him as this like big, wonderful analyst. But my only lingering memories of him are him coming on and saying, "Yeah, Arsenal's doing this," and then that never ever happening.
Well, he hosts.
So I don't know what to think of him. So I figured I'd ask someone from Spain.
They have the Liga Chat show, and he's the host of that. So he was just a journalist, and so I don't know why he keeps doing it. But I'm sure John will tell you more because John's been following.
I guess tell me what to think. I'm an impressionable mind.
This will be good. Go on, John.
Listen, he's what we call what I call a rumor monger. We have various shows here in Spain. Before it was Futboleros, now it's El Chiringuito de Football, which is just kind of like a roundtable of sports journalists and gossip writers, basically, because that's what sports journalism is here, really. That just sit around and talk possible transfers, rumors. Some have connections to clubs. Some don't. Some just speculate. Some pretend to be agents. Guillem is a very charming person. I mean, I think you can tell that. I think that's why he's popular in England. But his connections are very limited. I think people like Bumper Graham have better connections to clubs than he does. But he does know people. So what happens is he gets the story before it goes out to the UK, but so does anybody that can read Spanish here in the papers. So, no club official is really going to tell a journalist at this point, especially when here, exactly what's happening 100% of the time. So for him to come out with these exclusives and then he revises history. Well, that's not what I said. This is what happened.
That was my big issue with him.
Yeah,
I can see what you said last time.
So, I kind of like yesterday, I said, he's like a Vatican worker, in a Dan Brown novel. He kind of revises history. He tells you his version, and it's all for the common good. So
Sure.
I don't put any real stock into anything he said.
Yeah. I
This
didn't
is the
either,
same
but
guy.
occasionally you'll see people on Twitter and they'll be quoting him, and it's like
Well,
quoting, a gossip column.
He said well, we didn't get Mata because the bank transfer didn't get here in time. That tells you everything you need to know about the guy.
Wasn't he doing some spiel about all the details on Tesk's add-ons were this and that, and it turns out that he was completely fucking wrong.
I think I wrote a blog a year ago with all of Cesk's clauses and everything, and it was bang on 100%. And somehow, some way, the guy with quote-unquote connections, was on the record saying for this past year that there was no such clauses and this and that, and then tries to revise history and adjust that. Oh, yeah, there were clauses, but they don't mean anything. But this is what they were. So, yeah, the guy is a douchebag.
Ah, well, there you go.
There you go. That's settled
and
there.
Isn't it?
And that's the bottom line because John says so.
I
told you I was impressionable. I wanted to know what to think, so now I know.
I do like Graham Hunter. I will say that. I don't know what John's thoughts are, but
John's good. I like John.
Quite a big John. Well, John is good, yeah. But I meant Graham Hunter.
I like Graham Hunt. John.
I like Graham.
Yeah, he speaks well, speaks a lot of sense. Very, very rarely comes out and says this is happening. He'll often just say I can see.
Sid's another one that's good, but the thing with Sid is that he's so far up Bars's behind that he sometimes he can't see past his nose. But yeah, he's another one that's really good and gives good information at times.
His book was excellent as well. If anyone that
he needs
hasn't
to
read
stop
that.
shaving his bloody head because he looks like a wrong un. Get some facial hair or grow your hair, one or the other, because you don't. That completely shaven look does not suit you.
I've been speaking with Kike Marin, which is another journalist here.
He's quite good, isn't he?
He's, he'll tell you things the way they are. But he says this is all, kind of like a moving situation. So this is what's happening now. This is what I've been told, but that could change. I'm not saying something's going to happen 100%. So at least he's honest about it. As opposed to other people that say, no, this is exactly what's going on, kind of like Balag does. Mm-hmm. No, Kike Martin is more flexible. He'll tell you, listen, this is what I know. It could be different tomorrow. So
I think the other thing you've got to bear in mind as well is it's a beautiful segue into Arsenal transfer talk, which I know John's got something to mention about. But the thing is as well is that even if anyone listening to this, let's just say, for example, we walk into a cafe and Arsene Wenger sat there having his dinner, and we go, hello, Arsene, massive Arsenal fan, can I come and sit with you? And he goes, yeah, by all means, come and have a chat. He is not going to sit there and say to you, right, okay, so I'm thinking about signing him. I'm keen on him. We've had dealings with their agent. We met them last week. We took so-and-so's parents over to Arsenal last week. So he's not going to say that to anyone. He probably doesn't even share that information with Steve Bold.
And then ask you what you think.
And also, the only person that he's realistically going to share that information with is people like Ivan Gazidis and Dick Law, or anyone that essentially he needs to make the deal happen. He's not going to say that to anyone, much less a journalist, because even his closest friends, being a football manager nowadays must be like working for the FBI. You can't trust anyone. And unless and the only people that he is going to tell things to are probably going to be journalists that he knows. For example, like last night with Vidal, he was asked his opinion on him. He knows full well that if he gives an opinion on a player, the press will jump on that and go, right, he's interested in Vidal. And whilst they go and do that, that frees him up to go and actually do the business he wants to do. He's not going to lead us onto the scent of a player that he is actually interested in, because the minute that club gets any information from anybody that is a legit source, they're going to put the price up. So, any direct quotes that Wenger has, if you look at all the players we've ever signed, the most you'll ever get from us, and is, like last year with Ozil, I might have a nice surprise for you. He's never going to come out and he's never going to say who he's interested in signing. All he'll ever say is who he admires.
And nobody will have a clue of what's going on.
Exactly.
As nobody knew about Ozil last year.
So how do you cope?
What amazes me?
Oh, go on, Thomas.
Go ahead. Sorry. I was just going to say, it amazes me that people that have been following Arsenal for a while and have seen Arsenal transfer summers can still put so much. I mean, I like to dream like anybody else when transfer rumors come up. It'd be great to get Pogba or whatever, but ultimately, like how many people a week before we signed Ozil, like what were the odds? Like, what are the odds you could have got from bookies a week before we signed Ozil that we'd sign Ozil? Nobody knew. Are you kidding? Like, I don't know. It's crazy to me that some people are like, yeah, I totally know what Arsene Wenger's going to do, because nobody's known for 19 years.
And for that matter, how many clubs, come out and actively say who they're going to sign? I mean,
it's just bad business.
The only time it generally happens, from my experience, is occasionally you'll hear a manager of, like a sort of a Steve Bruce, for example, is one that jumps to mind, where he'll actively come out and say, look, we admire a player, and if they're having negotiations, They sometimes they will say, yeah, we're in talks with the player. Another one is Droopy Dog at QPR. Oh yeah, he's terrific player, terrific player.
All twitchy.
But people like that, that's because they're from the old school. And with all due respect to Steve Bruce, and well, no respect to that other twat, but managers like that was the sort of the Brian Clough era. That was how they grew up, where they could give a direct quote and it was all old school and a little handshake between managers. If you look at managers at the very top level, for the very biggest clubs in the world, as John and Thomas have both said, they are not going to come out and say this, because they are dealing for bigger money, bigger clubs, and deals can easily fall apart. Look at the Higuain deal, look at the Suarez deal.
Well, look at the situation that I find myself in. I have a friend that works for Real Madrid in the PR department. He's privy to that information. I know nothing that comes out of of Real Madrid until after it happens, and then a story is clarified to me about how things happen. He would never jeopardize his job to give anybody any kind of information. And so if if you take that kind of approach, multiply it times all the clubs and all the people that work for there, I just can't see how people can genuinely look at all of these stories and think that those are nothing but speculation.
So, Kris, being manager of the Bergkamp Pirates, how do you cope with transfer speculation, and how do you scout your players? And have you got sponsorship yet?
I'll take one at a time. Well,
you'll take them all now, goddammit, or you may storm out.
I'll take them all. Sponsorship wise, I had a business lunch yesterday.
Oh, McDonald's.
With a Happy Meal with a client. I live above a pub, so it's really handy because I can just nip downstairs. And no, we had a meeting, and I'm awaiting their decision on sponsorship on that one. So I'll let you all know when that one hopefully comes to pass.
Yeah.
But no, I mean, with regards to quote unquote new signings, I mean, at this level, the one thing that we have is, because we're a fairly new team, we only formed a year ago, it's quite hard to get players that suit our sort of team ethics and our team code. So, generally all I'll say is, as I did at the pre-season meeting, I'll just say anyone that's interested in signing for us, it's almost like a trial would be at a top club, I guess, where we invite them to train with us. And for me personally, I look for three things. Attitude, the desire to actually play for a team, and obviously their ability. But attitude is a really big thing.
And they have to like Metallica.
And they have to like Metallica. It ties in really nicely because, a lot of people have been talking about Balotelli and how his attitude.
You're not signing him, are you?
Well, no, I couldn't afford his wages, I'm afraid. But
that's a bit of a scoop there. Bergkamp Pirates signed Italian international.
That would be interesting, wouldn't it? We had a couple of players last year that played for our team and we got rid of because their attitudes weren't right. I had an experience of a player who demanded he be substituted during a game because he gave away a penalty, and he basically just sat in the penalty area and refused to play and insisted on being substituted because the referee made the wrong call. That's an adult, he's 28 years of age, and that's what you have to deal with at this level. So, how managers deal with it at the top level, where you've got a player who's probably sat across them on the desk saying, I demand £150,000 a week. I mean, we don't pay our players. It's just, it's all down to getting a good player to fit into a team. But we've got quite a close-knit group. So, attitude for me is a massive part of quote unquote signing a player on. If I think they're going to rock the boat, or if I think they've got an ego, I don't even want to know. Whereas I've got probably 4 players, I would say, maybe I'm included in that, but who are not particularly blessed with the most amazing ability, but they're good eggs. They'll always be there on time. They'll always pay their subs. They'll always be at training, and they'll always put a shift in, even if they're not particularly talented. And I'd rather take 3 of those than a superstar that's going to upset the bunch. So, that's probably where Arsene Wenger feels on Balotelli, I would imagine.
Oh, well,
at quite a higher level than my level, I should stress.
Well, that's good. So I think all the podcast listeners should take the Barbican Pirates, who will have a website up and ready soon.
Yes.
We should all adopt them as our local team.
Yes,
because we have our official wrestler that we've adopted, which is Kris Tunnymore. Hello, Kris, if you're listening out there, put in Boston back crabs on the workers at Tesco's when the bread is off. I don't know where I was going with that. Yeah, so I think maybe all the fans should follow the interests of Barbican Pirates, and then one day when they become a Premier League team, you
might be waiting a while for that.
Give everybody a free season ticket.
The real shame of the World Cup incident with Suarez is that Kris can't sign him for his team now because he's out for 4 months.
Oh, how were talks going that? Were you close?
We were close. Yeah, we'd offered him hamburgers with human meat, obviously.
There you go. That's the clincher.
We were in talks, but like you say, Danny, we're in the midst of building a website, so anyone that has any remote interest in following us can do so. Once the website's live, I'll let you know. And a little shout out to Darren, actually, who I know.
Darren Berry, Berry, 1974.
Yeah, top man. I know he did the ABW website, and he's building mine as well. He's a top guy, and anyone that is interested in building a website, give him a little holler. There's a cheap plug for Darren there.
And he also does a bit of blogging for.
He does.
Gunnerstown.
Gunnerstown, is it? Yeah.
Does a bit of blogging for Gunnerstown. So if go and have a follow of him on Twitter if you want anything website doing. He's not very good. He doesn't really know what he's doing, but he's a gooner. Just have a look at our site, and even though we've paid him to do all ours a year ago, if we have any problems, we just ask him, and then he usually helps us out without charging too much. But there again, John's been taking over the website. If anyone's seen all the lovely new stuff on the website, that's all John. I mean, I'll try and claim responsibility for it, but I don't think I'll get away with it, will I, John?
Oh, it doesn't matter. It's a group effort.
Well, I did it all myself, and I've had fuck all help from anybody else. I make a prediction now. If you're listening to this, I reckon by the 25th minute, Holland and Mexico will still be 0-0. That's just prediction. So we should talk about that game that kicks off in a few hours' time.
It's quite a good game so far.
Don't give it away. Watching it live, that we're 25 minutes in, 23 minutes in.
What's everybody's prediction for that game?
Holland.
No.
Mexico.
Well, I want Mexico to win, but we'll see.
Don't we all want Mexico to win?
Van Persie's already done something that I can hate him even more for now in this game, so definitely going for Mexico.
Was that
did you see a couple minutes ago he was going for the header and he reached behind and just tugged the Mexico guy down while the ref wasn't looking?
The fact the guy breathes is bad enough.
There was some poor Mexican bloke, and he went up in the air, and 2 Holland players scissor kicked him with one each of their own legs.
Yeah,
I must have missed that.
Oh, that was good. So, do you all want Mexico to go through? I think Holland will go through on this, but I don't really care with either one because they're just going to get.
Then tonight's match, Costa Rica.
Campbell.
This is going to be a slobber knocker.
Fun, isn't it? I'm calling Mexico.
So if it's James Rodriguez, is it Hull Campbell?
No, it's Joel.
Joel.
No, it's Joel.
Joel Campbell.
I'm calling Mexico 2-1, by the way, and Peralta first scorer. So if I'm right, then you can all say I'm right.
I'm going 2-0 Holland with Robin getting the first goal.
Interestingly, tonight, by the way, I mean that game it's kind of an odd one, isn't it? Because it's 2 very, very unfancied sides.
Yeah, Greece. Who are they?
And the winner of that game gets the winner of this game. Mexico, Costa Rica would be quite spicy, wouldn't it?
Absolutely. It's been spicy in CONCACAF, but I think Mexico usually wins it. But that's always quite a good game in the qualifiers on the way building up to the World Cups. So
I've got a horrible feeling that Greece will somehow get what they need out of that game.
No.
I hope not. I really hope not. I'm not supporting them in any way. Greece have got that.
No offense to the Greeks.
No
offense to the Greeks, but they're so boring.
They are, and that's what makes me wonder. I mean, they did it at the last Euros or 2 years ago, whatever it was. But no, I hope Costa Rica go through. I hope Joel has another cracking game and further enhances his reputation. But I don't think that will be a game blessed with many goals. I think it will be a sort of a 1 goal in it type of game. But yeah,
I think it'll be 1-0 Costa Rica.
I hope so. I hope you're right.
Joel Campbell with a 30-yard thunder
Bastard.
blast. Thunder bastard. That's the word I was looking for.
There
Yeah,
you
we
go.
haven't really had one yet, have we? Danny Alves almost hit one yesterday, but since it was Danny Alves, I was pretty pleased it didn't go.
I don't know. I put Tim Cahill's in the Thunder Bastard category. That was.
Yeah, but didn't you give it its own designation since it was inside the box?
Yeah, true.
It
I see what you
someone
mean.
said they gave it its own
no.
designation, like its own special category for just being a thunderous volley.
The horrible Dutch bastard just put one wide, which is always good.
Yeah.
Good chance as well. Anyway.
Since we're going to be off till Wednesday, let's go on to the next games. No, France, Nigeria.
Yeah, we should touch those actually, shouldn't we?
France should win that pretty comfortably, don't you guys think?
Yeah.
Yeah, too much talent.
In theory, yeah.
Germany, Algeria.
That's. It's one of those weird ones, isn't it? If Algeria, if it's 0-0 with or 1-1 with sort of 20 minutes to go, then I can see that being a bit tighter than people think it is. If, however, Germany start like they did against Portugal and arguably against Ghana, they could blow Algeria out of the park early. And a lot of it depends on how the Algerians line up. If they open up and they play the expansive football they did against Korea, then I can see them troubling the Germans, particularly pace-wise. I mean, God bless him, our good friend BFG will be at the back, obviously, and they're not blessed with a huge amount of pace at the back, Germany. So tricky little players like Feghouli getting in behind could cause the Germans problems. I mean, the US proved that. Getting in behind, they created a few chances. But having said that, I think Germany's power will probably overdo Algeria like a 3-1, I would imagine. But I just wouldn't be shocked if it was closer than people realise or think it could be.
Am I the only one that thinks Germany could potentially do better by actually playing some fullbacks, including Lahm at right back, and playing, proper mid like Khedira next to Schweinsteiger, and actually, I don't know. I just don't know if I really like the 4 fullback system yet. I'm curious what your guys' thoughts are.
He's tinkering with that lineup, obviously.
But yeah, I just don't get it. I don't think it works. Like they get exposed on the flank. If the United States can expose you on the flanks, you have big issues. Like, no offense to the country I live in, but I just don't understand why you don't play a proper fullback. Get Lahm out of the middle of the park. You have 9 other people that can play there. He's the best right back in the world. I don't care that he plays center mid for Bayern Munich now. Like, if you look at his stats, he is the best right back in the world when he plays right back, or he's a fairly good center midfielder when he plays center mid. So put him in his correct position and put someone else there that can do some more in the middle of the park. Because really all he does as a midfielder is connect passes.
He can play. He'd be fantastic at right back because he's played in 3 different positions, hasn't he? But it's, since why do I always think this Jose, who's a manager at Barcelona, when it's Pep Guardiola, Pep saw him and the first thing he did is moved him to defence or central midfield in a holding role.
Yeah, he's basically to them what Busquets was to Barcelona, in that he just hits 95% passes every single game, and he's phenomenal at it. But like the guy Ted Knutson on Twitter did a thing on him the other day that basically dissected him as a right back versus as a center midfielder, and he's like, yeah, I mean, he's a very good center midfielder because he creates a lot of passes, but he's really not anything special as a middle midfielder. But when you put him at right back, the guy's amazing. He creates more chances a game than like Danny Alves, but he's way better in the tackle. He doesn't foul. Like, he's never out of position. The guy's the best right back in the world when you put him at right back. So how do you move him? That's like taking Ronaldo and putting him at holding mid.
Well,
I mean, I'm sure he'd be fine there, but why?
But Schweinsteiger should be playing in that position, shouldn't he?
Yeah, I'd put Khedira next to Schweinsteiger, have Khedira sit.
Oh, you're not going to get past
Let
him.
Schweinsteiger do his thing and run box to box, and put some attackers in front of him and beat Germany. I don't know.
Well, maybe they're
just feel like it's more efficient.
Maybe they're just moving stuff around because Schweinsteiger was injured, wasn't he, at the end of the season for Bayern, and so maybe they're just doing it for the group games.
He came in.
Yeah, that's an idea. See, for me, I get why they did it. On the other hand, so I don't want to completely take it apart, because if you watch Germany's first game, it worked like a charm. Basically, the idea for me is you put 4 big center backs in a platform. You don't move them the whole game. They stand in a line at the back, and then you put 6 creative players in front of them and let them interchange and do whatever they want. And then basically you have a platform and then a creative mess in front of that, and the platform just sweeps up, gives it back to the creative guys, and away you go. So I get the theory. But against these teams that have quick wingers and can hit you on the counter, none of those center backs have a whole lot of pace. Mertesacker is obviously the slowest, but Hummels isn't exactly lighting the world on fire with pace. So I just don't get the theory when you play some other teams. I mean, with as many players as they have, I mean, they could play any number of 6 or 7 systems and probably be successful. I just don't understand why sometimes that's the one they pick. And he seems pretty gung-ho on sticking with it. But I was curious what you guys thought, because it's confusing me.
Well, as we've been doing this for 2 hours now, I think we should we were going to do a little thing where we're going to pick our best team, but I think we should save that for the next pod, because then after months, it's just what we do. We were talking about 3.5 hours the other night, so once you add it all up, when it gets us through, we just end up talking continuously about everything. So
I do agree with you. I do like the long podcast.
I do agree with you, Thomas. It's just that I think he's carrying through the club form to the national team now, and Lowe's just going with the flow. But we all think Germany will win that game, no?
Oh yeah.
And then I guess the last day.
Germany, I reckon Germany will get 5 or 6.
The last day before we pod again is going to be Argentina, Switzerland.
Yeah. Yep. What did we say about France, Nigeria? Have we done that? Because I just had 2 people, my friends, come in.
France.
So we all agreed France. Although Nigeria, I do think they look pretty good at times, but I think France are too organised, and I think France will ruin them. But I couldn't say it then because I had it on mute, because I was saying to them, "Go away, I'm podcasting."
I think Nigeria have the tools to trouble France.
Yeah.
But I don't think they'll beat them. I think France will overpower them, and I think Mr. Benzema will take him. I think Nigeria will score, but I think France will outscore them.
So what were you saying about the final 4 games, John?
It's Argentina, Switzerland.
Yep. Argentina all day long on that. That's not even close. I mean, that's a 5 o'clock kickoff here. That means it's a midday kickoff there, roughly around midday. So the Argentinians from South America as well. I know some parts of Argentina are frozen because they're near the South Pole, and the rest of them are quite warm the further north you go. But Switzerland, it's snow all year round, so they're going to be fucked.
I'm going against the grain. I'm picking Switzerland.
Oh, what you think?
I think it'll be a draw that goes to penalties, personally. But
I think it'll be extra time. But I think Argentina will just have enough.
I think Argentina will do it in the end, but I think it'll take them penalties to do it.
The weird thing with Argentina is that arguably the injury to Aguero and the loss of form of Higuain is almost doing them a favour, because they'll be able to free up Messi. They'll be able to put Ezekiel Lavezzi will probably come into the wide role, and they look a better side and much more balanced with that sort of structure.
They want to be careful they don't do what Brazil are doing and being all about one player.
Oh yeah, no, absolutely. I think when you've got players like Lavezzi and who's the other guy who plays on the other side? Di Maria. I forgot his name for a minute.
Yeah.
He's not bad.
Two arguably of the best, support players for a forward that you can ask for assist-wise. And also, weirdly, one of their most potent weapons is Mascherano. Although he's a hugely talented sort of player at breaking up the play and winning tackles, he's got a brilliant range of passing. And that often opens up the opportunity to ping balls to the right and left, which frees up the wingers to cut in. And when you've got a player of, arguably the best player in the world in Messi to supply, I think that sort of dictates the way Argentina will play, and I think you'll get the better of them without Aguero having to be sandwiched into that and an out of form Higuain.
That's all great in theory, but look at the Iran match.
Yeah.
So
I picked Argentina to get to the finals, but I'm
so did
starting to rue that decision.
I have Germany-Argentina final.
So do I. Look at that.
But it's just a matter of time. Some of the best World Cup teams in history have had slow starts. I can't believe you're not picking Argentina to just pick it up and then just annihilate Switzerland. Switzerland have got virtually
nothing. I've seen Argentina way too many times to have any faith in any kind of run.
Well, it's going to happen soon.
Venezuela beat them.
Did they?
We did. We beat them 1-0. So they can be bullied, and I think in a match where Switzerland's strength is, kind of that, brazen kind of play in the midfield, and kind of, look at what Switzerland did to Spain in 2010. They have that in them. They're not. They came in ranked 6th in the world. We all know they're not the 6th best team in the world. But I think people, despite their current form, they have it in them to give, Argentina a match. And Argentina has it in them to be, to bottle it.
Going forward, it just depends for Switzerland. Going forward, they got all the tools of the trade and they can hurt Argentina. If they've got either of Giroud or Senderos or both, I would be very worried.
I think you can do with one. I think when you put them both together is when the calamity happens.
It's walking around with your
part of the team when we beat Barcelona at home?
It was Giroud.
Did he start that day?
What, the Arshavin game or
the Bentham?
Yeah, the Arshavin winner one.
I'd have to look it up, which I'm doing as
I'd
we
have
speak.
to as well. And I think he was the starter that game, in which case he's already taken Messi once, so maybe he'll do okay. But you can't put him with Senderos, or
No.
the stadium might blow up.
On BBC 5, Five Live with Dotton, I'm a moron, Adebayo, they were picking their World Cup 11, and one of them picked Senderos as the best centre-back.
Oh, God.
That's
Oh,
what
Lord.
a load of bullshit
You're
that show is.
absolutely bang on, by the way, Thomas. That the back four that night was Koscielny, Giroud, Clichy, and Abue. Fucking hell, how did we win that game?
And as I recall, though, I think I recalled after that game thinking Giroud pretty much between Giroud and Koscielny pretty much put Messi in their pocket. Now, how much of that was knowing now that Koscielny's the tits, I don't know. But
I remember Koscielny being absolutely brilliant in that game. But but as you say, I mean, having to carry, Giroud alongside him, well, not carry, but you know what I mean, have him alongside. So
we'll see what happens, I guess. We could be entirely wrong, and Messi could just go stick 4 past him, but I think it'll be a really tight game.
And then the late game, Belgium, United States.
Upset, calling it now.
What, you mean Belgium are going to win?
Shush.
That'll be the only upset. Belgium are rubbish. USA are going to get through there. Go on then, you two.
I don't think
Hands
Belgium.
down.
I don't think Belgium are rubbish, but I just think this is exactly the sort of game the US would want. Touched on it earlier. I think if you'd have given the US the choice, I think they'd have picked Belgium over Algeria. Algeria have got certain sort of qualities that I think would hurt the US, but with Belgium, okay, they've had some clean sheets, but have they really been tested properly in the group? Have they been asked to lift the level to perform? I'm not 100% sure they will. It's got the sort of makings of a game that will go all the way, but go on.
I would my counter to that is, doesn't Belgium have exactly what you were talking about that Algeria has? Mertens, Hazard, Irias.
Yeah, they've got the same sort of players, but they play in a different way. Algeria seem to attack with a bit of kind of almost reckless intent, where they bomb forward and they've got players moving around. Whereas with Belgium, it tends to be right, give it to Hazard and he'll do his thing, or give it to Mertens, he'll do his thing, and it's got quite individual. And then to try and look for a forward, they just seem to play a bit differently. And I think the way the US will set up in this game will be much the same as they did against the Germans. I think they'll sit and they'll invite them on. They'll invite Belgium on and say, well, come and beat us. And they've got the players to get in behind and hurt. I could easily see this being a 0-0 going all the way to penalties. I could easily see it going all the way that sort of base of game, quite tight defensive game. But I don't know if Thomas, you have a different view or.
I think based on the current form of both teams, I think the United States can feel like they can get something from this, because I think they'll outwork Belgium. I think Belgium so far is, like you said, they've been coasting. They've been winning their games, but barely. But Belgium hasn't played as good as we know Belgium can. And that's what's really scary, is if Belgium plays as well as they can, the fact that they have 2 good wingers, I talked earlier about how the United States can be had on the wings because we don't get out and stop crosses very well.
Yep.
If they can get service into Lukaku, like specifically crosses into Lukaku via Mertens and Hazard, it could be a really long night for the U.S.
Yeah.
Because I think if Fellaini, basically there's going to be 2 battles. If our fullbacks can shut down their wingers, and if our midfield, if Witsel and Fellaini show up, like, as much as I hate Fellaini, but if they show up like we know they can, and we can't overpower them in midfield, it's going to be a very, very, very long night.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah,
we'll see. I don't know. I'm hoping the U.S. win because I'm an American, but I'm not feeling overly confident because, like I said, if Belgium shows up, I think it could be a bloodbath. But I thought that about Germany, and we only lost 1-0, so who knows?
That's what gives me hope. That's the one game that I compare it at. I mean, Belgium have got less than Germany had, and Germany didn't really pose threat. I mean, they were a threat.
They dominated that game.
They dominated possession, but I didn't think
but they didn't do a whole lot with it.
No.
I was never really overly worried with what they were doing. But again, how much of that is down to the fact that Germany didn't have to win?
That's
true. They just couldn't get their ass handed to them. So
that's
fair.
fair.
Now it's win or die. But then the converse of that argument becomes the U.S. is always at its best when it's win or die.
Yeah, that's true. The mentality.
We always tend to come up a level as a team for some reason whenever there's this win or die attitude, because we know we're not favorites. The team knows they're not favorites. Jurgen Klinsmann said we're not going to win the World Cup. He's like the only coach to say that.
Yeah.
But it's honest. He's like, we're not there yet. Well, what that did was put a spark into the team's ass, and we did pretty well in qualifying, or well enough at least to get out. So who knows?
Yeah.
It should be a good one, I think.
Yeah, I agree.
I think it'll be a good match.
Yeah.
I just, so everybody's consensus is what?
USA.
I'll go.
I'm gonna
USA.
go with USA because I'm an American.
And I'm alone again, Belgium.
But who do you want to go through?
Just because I think it would kickstart more of a movement than it already has in the U.S.
Yeah.
I would love U.S. to have, a run, but it's just the sum of the parts just don't equal the work ethic at this point in time. So I just find it hard if Belgium is on their game for the U.S. to have much of a chance, to be honest.
They haven't been on their game
You're right,
so far, so why should they start now? Much like Argentina.
Yeah, but I mean, I just think that quality at a certain point, especially in tournaments, quality comes through. And if you see Belgium's quality running up to World Cup in their qualifying was well beyond what they're doing now, as opposed to in Argentina they had slips here and there during their qualifying against very inferior teams. Belgium didn't have that.
Yeah.
Well, there you go then. So that's, I think that's all that's sorted out. We haven't got time. We've been doing this for 2 and a bloody quarter hours. I know Thomas was saying that he likes to listen to a long pod, but these are going on
ridiculous.
quite a bit. Is there any other stuff we've got to cover? Oh, we've got that little thing that we're going to say at the end.
The transfer stuff.
Yeah,
Oh, yeah,
that's,
what was
that's
that?
probably
Do
what we
that.
should finish with. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. As far as Morgan Schneiderlin, because I know that we've been hearing rumors and whatnot. Little birdie kind of tapped me on the shoulder, and this is not any inside information or anything like that, but it seems to be, yeah. I would never claim to be, but this is just some information that has been passed on to us, that Arsenal wants Schneiderlin, that the player wants the move. Tottenham is also after the player.
Who?
Tottenham.
Who?
The scum. The scum.
I know. I'm winding you up. They're a Sunday League team, aren't they?
Yeah.
Something like that.
If you carry on, Chris, you'll go on his murder list when he's free. When he goes on Hannibal Lecter.
Tottenham.
But Southampton also want to sell the player to us because it seems that we're offering more money. So, but the little scum team down the road is trying to get in the middle of it. It doesn't seem like they'll be successful because the player wants to move to Arsenal.
Any idea on a fee?
No, there was no mention of a fee or amount of money. And as I mentioned before, I've been talking to Kike Martin, and just between him and the guy from France, was a French TV, that said that Schneiderlin and Sanchez were on their way to Arsenal, and all the news out of here that Barcelona were trying to put Pedro in the deal for Suarez now instead of Sanchez. There's some hope of good news to come our way. Will it be these two players? I have no idea. But the signs are positive that the club are doing things behind the scenes, and it's not just Arsene on the beach, playing a football.
Which, by the way, it's nice to know that a 64-year-old man is twice the athlete I am.
Yeah, right. Touche. and can we also just say to anyone, and not, I don't think I'm being out of line here when I say this, for all the people that are, and you know who you are, the people that sit on Twitter and slag off us and then go, oh, Man United is spending money on Herrera and Shaw, Man City are buying Fernando, and Arsene Wenger's playing beach football, he's a disgrace, blah, blah, blah. Sorry, just fuck off, alright? I'm trying to be nice, but I can't, I'm not nice. Just fuck off. Like, you're not a
manager. The sound you're hearing is a sound of me clapping.
It just pisses me off.
Wasabi peanuts, and it's killing me.
It really pisses me off. This is the same manager that everyone's, he can't win anything, he's busted flush. Like, we won an FA Cup a couple of months ago, and apparently so, because everyone else has apparently forgotten.
You'd think not, wouldn't you?
You would. You'd think we were a club in crisis, like Tottenham. But, just give the guy a chance. I've said, so I know John's with me 100% on this, if we get to August the 31st, and we've brought in Kevin Doyle and Joey Barton, then by all means, I'll
given on a free.
Exactly. By all means, I'll put my address and phone number on Twitter. Come round to my house and have a go at me and punch me in the face and say I told you so. By all means. But until that date and until we've had a transfer window, it's the 28th of June or 29th of June. Give the guy a chance. Just sit back, just chill out, have a nice whatever it is you like to drink, and just see what happens. And as I say, if it comes to August the 31st and we haven't bought anyone, or what we have bought is horrible, fine. By all means, then call the manager on it, because he has every right to be called on it. This is the summer where we've got the money, and this is the summer where everyone expects us to build on the success we've had at the FA Cup, and we rightly should build on the success we've got. But until the guy has had a chance to do his business, and let's also not forget the business could well have already been done. Nobody
Don't
knows.
say do your business, because it
No, that
reminds
sounds
me
wrong,
of my
doesn't
cake mixture earlier.
And
we shouldn't, and also add that to that, Kris, that just because the Puma launch is July 10th
doesn't
mean that there's going to be a lineup of 5 players holding Puma shirts coming out. It's just, the likelihood
Where the
is...
hell that theory came from is hilarious.
Well, no. I mean, the theory is that we can't contractually sign a player and then not announce him with a Nike, with a Nike.
I get that. That bears a lot of credence for me. The one that I find just hilariously comical is, once we unveil Puma, we're gonna have like 5 new signings to unveil in the shirt, and it's like,
what we should expect is that stuff will start being announced after that date. But people coming out saying, it'll be Balotelli and Aurier and Sanchez, and they'll all be there holding the Puma shirt. I think you're going to put yourself up to a point where, and this is another thing, to what Kris says, all these crazy rumors, everybody believes everything. And then they blame the club when it doesn't happen, even though,
the club have not said a thing.
Yeah, and the club haven't done anything. But,
what have we done? I haven't said anything. What are you on about? Like that.
So...
Oh, dear.
Themselves up for disappointment and then blame the club when it becomes scenario.
Yeah, it's patience. Good old Tim Payton says it's #patience. It really is, and as Dom has said a few times on this pod, it's hits and clicks, and when there is, usually it's when there's no football on. We've got a World Cup, and yet people are still fascinated by transfers, and it is a massive global business, and it does promote people to get blogs written and papers sold and whatnot. But at the end of the day, we've got a very decent squad. People have forgotten that. We're only 2 or 3 players short of a real serious sort of challenge, and we've the manager has signed this 3-year contract, and we as supporters, we all get behind players no matter what they're like. When they pull an Arsenal shirt, we get behind them, and we should be doing the same with the manager.
The only website you should be believing is Arsenal.com.
Exactly. Until it happens, and until the player stood there with the shirt and the contract ink is dry, then that's it's not happening. Just as a caveat to what you said, John, I wouldn't be surprised if on July the 10th or whatever the kit release date is, I wouldn't be surprised if there was a player at that. I'm not saying there will be, but I wouldn't be surprised either way. And if there isn't, like you say, don't throw yourself off a bridge. Just be patient.
And if anyone's got any money to spare, put 50 quid on Holland, Mexico to be 0-0 at half time. I've had a premonition. Right, are we all done?
Yes,
I think we're all done.
Okay, right. As it's
thank you, Thomas, for coming on.
Yes, thank you, Thomas.
Yeah, cheers, Thomas.
Yeah.
And as it's that time of year again from Ramadan, we've got a little message here. So we'd like to wish all of our friends Ramadan Mubarak. May you and your families be blessed with peace and good health during this wonderful month. And I'm not reading that, and FK didn't write it. It was all my own work. So, yeah, hello to all of you. And when it's over, you go and eat lots of cake and chocolate and fizzy drinks and get fat like me. So there you go. Someone's typed something. Oh, God, there we go. That was unimportant, wasn't it? It could have been really important. Right, so that was a Bergkamp Wonderland World Cup special. Part, I don't know, put whatever you want in there, part 72. Nanu, you cheeky monkeys. This is where you lot say something funny and I leave it in at the end.
Emil.
Go follow Thomas at TMunt. MUNDT.
I'm sure it'll be all over Twitter when you guys post the pod anyway, no worries.
It will be. Alright then, that's all over and done with. Bonjour.
Buongiorno.
Bye.